Story 1. Wife of 33 years accidentally cheated and wanted forgiveness, so I told her to get out and divorced. Married for 33 years, me, wife, 2 kids, 2 grandkids, and we love them dearly. Background. We met at a nightclub back in the 80s where I was working as a bouncer. We went out for a date and 2 months later moved in together. 2 years later, we married. We had a good life, work, play, having children. I went from a very active job to a sedate job and put on a lot of weight, to the extent that I couldn't even finish sex as I would get an asthma attack. We tried different things to spice up our sex life and were always monogamous. I had been cheated on in the past, so infidelity was a red line that my wife and I never crossed. We loved each other and thought we would die together. 33 years married is a long time, but I loved her more after every year that passed. After 20 years of a dead bedroom, I made a decision to lose the weight. So, after 2 years, I lost 80 kilograms, 176 pounds, and had a tummy tuck. I know it sounds vain, but there were 3 main reasons. 1 was so I could see my grandkids grow up, 2, my health obviously, and 3, to rekindle our sex life. And it did. For the last 2 years, we had sex about 3 or 4 times per week, and my wife enjoyed every second of it. I knew this because her body doesn't lie. So, we were in a position where we could enjoy our lives with each other. She still says she is in love with me and I with her. I have never cheated on her, and I know she had never cheated on me. It's just one of those things. Well, that was until 3 days ago. She went on a holiday with her 2 sisters, headed off interstate with them. I had no problem with this as I trusted her, but she knew that cheating was a deal breaker with us, and even after 33 years it still is. We had a relationship where nothing was hidden. We had apps on our phones where we could see each other's whereabouts. This had nothing to do with a lack of trust, just simple safety. No phones were hidden, and we both had access to our messages and emails. Trust was never an issue. When I lost my weight and started to look better, I did gain more attention from women, but I always brushed it off as I was happily married. My wife would comment that she felt a little insecure now that I was being found attractive by others, and she had put some weight on. This never worried me as I love her no matter what she looks like. I tell her daily I love her and how beautiful she is. Our sex is amazing, and I am regretful that we didn't try hard enough earlier on. Anyway, I had just finished work and was heading home when I got a phone call from my wife. She was very upset and asked me if my sister-in-law had spoken to me. I said, "No, why?" I asked what was wrong, never thinking that I would hear what she was about to say. She told me she cheated and had sex with another man. She is so sorry. She didn't know what came over her. I was shocked and my heart just broke. I sat in my car numb while she continued. She said her sisters and her were having a few drinks and a married couple joined them. They drank until 2 a.m., and her sisters had already left to go back to their room. The bar closed, and she told me that she was very drunk and went with a couple to their room to keep drinking and talking. They both were very complimentary and kept telling my wife how sexy she was and her husband was a lucky man. The man then started to touch her, and the wife encouraged them both. They told her no one would know and to just enjoy it. She said she felt that it wasn't even her, but she had sex with the husband while the wife watched. In the morning, when she woke up, she was in bed with both of them asleep and ran back to her room. Her sister caught her, and she told her everything. Her sister told her she had to tell me or she would. She told me all this while sobbing over the phone and begging for my forgiveness. I was just numb. How could she just throw away our lives? She was crying and kept saying she is so sorry and she hates herself. How much she loves me and made a terrible mistake. I told her she didn't make a mistake. She made a decision. I then hung up on her and turned off my phone. I went home and just sat in a chair trying to work out what is going to happen now. I cried over the loss of my wife as I knew her in the years we had together. I cried over the loss of our future together and the effect her decision will have on our family. My life as I knew it was over. I shut myself off for the last 2 days and then turned my phone back on. Needless to say, there were hundreds of messages from her and her sisters. The last one was, "She is on her way home." My kids have also tried to contact me as their mother was ringing them to see if I was all right and if they had heard from me. I rang my kids and told them what happened and that I am as okay as can be expected. but I will be leaving home to go sort myself out before she gets home. I asked them not to tell her where I'm going, but I need to come to grips with the end of my marriage. I have just sent a text to my soon-to-be ex-wife telling her we are getting a divorce and I don't want to hear from her. I don't care about the details and I now don't care about her. The pain is incredible. I would never have thought that her love could have been destroyed so quickly. Date 1. I may ramble a bit, but I have a lot going through my mind, and it keeps jumping from one thing to another. A couple of clarifications. Our dead bedroom wasn't completely dead, but compared to the last 2 years, it seems so. The active job I had was in the military, and I got injured on a training exercise which led to a desk job, then medical discharge, and then my wife and I bought a small business together. Now, before I speak to my wife, I have spoken at length to my sister-in-law and her husband. The story my wife gave me was certainly different to the one she gave me when she first confessed. My kids were horrified about what happened and just want to support me. I have explained to them that though they may be angry with their mother, she is still their mother and the grandmother of their kids. She loves them, and what she did to our marriage does not change that. My wife and her sisters did cut the holiday short and came home. I left a note for my wife telling her to pack and go stay at her mother's. She did this. The details of how it went down are much worse than what my wife told me. Though she confessed under the threat of being exposed, she didn't tell the truth. No surprise there. My wife broke down to her sister and apparently told her everything. I won't know what to believe until I sit down with my wife. The story she told her sister went like this. She loves me and loves our marriage. She never expected to do this. She blames our active sex life we have had over the last 2 years to explore what else she had been missing. She felt this way because she was always the attractive one in the relationship, but now she believes the roles are reversed. She was insecure and needed to be wanted by someone else. She swears it was the first time, but she did plan it. It was a fantasy she acted on. She was scratching an itch and was never going to tell me. Unbeknownst to her sisters, the couple she met were interstate customers of ours. I haven't met them, but my wife spoke with them all the time over the phone. My wife went for drinks to meet up with them, but her sisters tagged along, so they pretended to be strangers until they left. She did drink, but was not falling down drunk. All three had this plan before they went away. My wife is coming around this afternoon to talk. Apparently, she is beside herself as to what will happen. I already know what I will do. She chose to cheat, but everyone will feel the repercussions of it. Already, the truth about her cheating, though it makes it more devastating to me, makes my resolve stronger. I didn't cheat. I didn't force her to lie. Her feelings that she has lost me and her marriage are spot on, and I don't give a shit how miserable she is. She did this, no one else, but we will now all have to deal with it. We are over and will have to navigate our changed lives. Firstly, thank you to those 99% that showed support. It really is helping. For those others that blamed me, well, I have no doubt that you have your own issues to deal with and good luck with that. This is a long post, as once I started to type, I couldn't stop. It felt good to get it down in print, so to speak, and was a little cathartic. This will be my last update for a while, and for those interested in what happens, I will post in a few months' time to let you know how things are going. I had the talk with my wife yesterday. After so many years together, we both find that we don't sleep very well without the other beside us. It's been like that for decades. Well, last night was the first night that I had a very good night's sleep without her there. She came around home and walked through the door. She looked terrible. Lack of sleep, guilty, scared, and red-eyed. Normally, my heart would break, and I would make her feel better, but not this time. I was sitting at the table, and she started to cry again and rushed in for a hug, blubbering she fucked up and is so sorry, etc. I put my hand up and told her not to touch me and sit down. She sat down. I asked if she wanted a coffee as I was going to make one, and she accepted. So I made the coffee and went back to the table. Her eyes never left me. She started to speak, but I told her to be quiet and answer my questions and listen. This isn't about her, but me and the marriage. I told her at this point we were done. She had made her choice, and this is about making mine. I had already made my choice, but I wanted to get some semblance of truth out of her, and I thought if she thought she had a chance, she would at least be a little honest. I told her I have spoken with her sister, which was true, and I had spoken with a couple, which wasn't true, but she didn't know that. I had the strangest feelings inside of me. Happy that she was so upset, but sad for us at the same time, along with disappointment, anger, and all the normal emotions you would have, but I was calm, and this freaked her out the most. Honestly, I felt I was doing a job interview. I asked her how many times. She said physically once and twice on video chat. I told her to explain how it happened. She told me that when they were talking business, it turned to flirting. Then when the wife said it was okay and got involved over a couple of months, it moved on to watching them have sex. She told them that it has always been a fantasy of hers to have sex while the wife watched, and they were all for it. She was crying when she told me this and said it went too far. She knew it was dangerous, which made it more exciting for her. She started to tell me that she felt insecure, but before she could continue, I told her I don't want to hear her bullshit excuses and justifications. I had to wait about 5 minutes until she could pull herself together. I even got up and got her tissues. She said they met up as arranged, and after her sisters had left the bar, they went straight to the couple's room. I asked her if she ever intended to tell me, and she said no, it was just a fantasy that she thought she could fulfill and never think about cheating again. I called bullshit and asked if she had cheated over the last 33 years. She said never. I told her that now it didn't matter how many times she cheated, either once or 1,000 times, the result would still be the same. The only one it will hurt if she is lying is our kids and her relationship with them and our grandkids. I told her I don't believe her, but at this point it's irrelevant. At this, she started to realize I had no intention of working through her infidelity. She begged me to work on our marriage. She would do anything. I could do anything. She would let me have affairs if I stayed. She promised she would never again. I told her to listen to what she was saying. She has degraded herself enough. I would never cheat in a marriage, and if I did sleep with another woman, it would mean we were separated with no chance of reconciliation. This is the last thing on my mind. She reached over to try and grab my hand, but I told her that I will never touch her again. It's not that I am judgmental of anyone's lifestyle. It's their own business, and I understand people do have affairs, open marriages, etc., but the point is we didn't. The trust and respect were destroyed when she planned to have another man's dick inside her. I have always been a pragmatic man, and I just felt relief. I told her we make this as easy on us as we can. She took this as hope for our relationship, but I told her no, we are done. I will never touch you again, and I meant it. I could never forget that she fucked another man, and the woman I loved and married is now dead to me. She died when you not only fucked another man but planned for it. All the good memories we have will remain. The holidays, building our first home together, having and bringing up our children, all the laughs in life we face together are just that, memories. We are now going to have separate lives, and I, for one, am looking forward to seeing what happens, and they will not include you. When I do meet another woman, I hope to start new memories with her, and hope that I do find love again. She was shaking and crying when I told her this, but it didn't faze me. I just wanted this woman out of my house. She couldn't continue with the talk, so I went down to the shed and reached out to my kids by phone while she composed herself. I told them what was happening, and they were very supportive and said to not drag it on and just finish it. I went back up, and as soon as I walked through the door, she started again with the sorry and we can make this work. I sat down and said we are going to sell the house and business and split everything 50-50ths. You can have the car and I will take the truck and my motorcycle. She can take the cats. I then told her not to ring me, text me, or contact me in any way unless it's about the kids or grandkids. I will contact the lawyers and start the ball rolling for the divorce, and she is free to go fuck anyone she wants as she is now a free woman. She told me that she didn't want to fuck anyone else and I was being deliberately mean and unemotional. I told her that I was being honest and her actions had put me in an emotional void. I told her that she is the only one to blame for the destruction of our marriage and no one else. I loved her unconditionally, and she is the one who fucked it up. I then left the house so she could sort herself out and take a few more things with her and went over to my daughter's. I stayed there for a few hours talking with her and played with my granddaughter. When I got home, she had left, and as I said, I had the best night's sleep without her I have ever had. Now to see what happens over the next 6 months or so. Update 2-3 months later. Divorce day. Anyway, 3 months down the track, and I have moved things very quickly. Business was sold, house sold, legally separated, waiting for the divorce waiting period. But for all intents and purposes, I have separated all our joint assets and am starting on the road in my new life. I would never have thought that I would be where I am today. 3 months ago, I had the life I wanted. A loving wife, self-employed, great family and friends, nice home. I was looking forward to having my wife with me for the rest of our lives. Then my soon-to-be ex-wife fucked it all up for her and for our family by lying, cheating, and being disloyal. We had our problems like every long-term couple, but we always stayed true to each other. When she got caught, it destroyed me. The loss of our lives together was devastating, and I could not fathom why she did this. But this is where my life changed for me. It was not what I wanted, but was decided for me by my cheating wife. I am a pragmatic man who has always had strong family values, and this has made the transition to where I am now easy for me. I have made the decision to not let my feelings make me wallow in self-pity, and I refuse to act the victim. It gets you nowhere. With the sale of the family home and the business, after splitting everything equally with the soon-to-be ex-wife, I had enough to buy 2 small units near my grandchildren. My son and daughter live in different states with their partners and kids. I did this because I want my own space but be close enough to visit. I am still working as a previous business competitor offered me a part-time role, which I have taken up. It still gives me a lot of free time to start enjoying life again. There were a couple of weeks that I didn't have anything to do, so I jumped on the bike and went riding. No destination, just stopped for coffee and sightseeing. Stopped at pubs at night and enjoyed a couple of drinks before heading off the next day. What has surprised me is how the whole casual relationship scene with women is, and I must say I'm liking it. Hooked up with a couple of women over the 2 weeks with no expectations. Just sex and fun with no emotional baggage. I am surprised how well I am feeling. A few people have asked me if I ever contacted the couple that my wife cheated with. No, I see no need, nor do I have any desire to. It was my soon-to-be ex-wife's decision to cheat on me, not theirs. I want no contact with them. They mean nothing to me. Honestly, the best revenge against a cheating partner is a display of apathy and just get on with your own life. Sure, you still think about what happened, but life goes on. Concentrate on yourself. My soon-to-be ex-wife is apparently still delusional and thinks once I calm down and get sick of not having her there, I will take her back. I have told her in no uncertain terms that our marriage is over with no chance of reconciliation. I also told her I no longer care what the fuck she does or who she does it with. It no longer has anything to do with me, just as whatever I do no longer has anything to do with her. My daughter told me that her mother is still in denial and is very sad and embarrassed for what she did, and she wants her to convince me to take her back. I told my daughter that will never happen as she is only sad and embarrassed because she got caught, and I followed through with leaving her. Life is certainly different than I expected, but I'm really looking forward to the future now. Now on to the next story. Story 2. My boyfriend grabbed my face during an argument in front of his mom. When I scratched him, she lied that I attacked him, and now my family is siding with my abuser and telling me to apologize. 3 days ago, my partner, 32M, his mother, and I, 25F, were on our way to his sister's house for her daughter's birthday. We've been together for 8 years, on and off. Just the night before, my partner and I had an argument about kids. Nothing new lately. He wants one and we've been trying for a few months now. Anyway, I said we need to see a doctor. He believes that we're both healthy and young, and if anything, then we're doing something wrong. I was already exhausted from work and wanted to have some rest, so I didn't argue much, which only made him even more angry. I sat up and let him have his moment, then slept. Next day, we went to pick up his mother. I tried to start a conversation, but he just kept nodding. Now, with his mom with us in the car, I tried my best to lighten the mood so she didn't feel uncomfortable. 5 minutes or so, he said, "Can you shut your mouth for a minute? I don't want to hear your voice." His mother asked him what's wrong. All I said was, "I know what's wrong with him." He stopped the car and yelled at me that since I know what's wrong, then I for sure know what an immature beach I am for starting a discussion with no intention to communicate. Mind you, he was the one who started it and refused to lower his voice and sit down so we could communicate like adults. All this time, his mother in the back seat just watched. Growing up in a house where everyone yelled to prove their point, I hate raised voices. Him screaming at me for an argument we had yesterday, on our way to a birthday party we're supposed to enjoy, made me lose it and snap at him. Can you stop effing screaming? Can't we talk about this when we're back home? He grabbed my face and told me to never talk to him this way, especially in front of his mother. To this moment, she said nothing. His grip on my jaw kept getting worse with every word. He did this before but never used this much force. So, to take his hand off me, I tried to grab his wrist and push, but ended up scratching him a little. I swear to God, I didn't mean to. I just couldn't bear the pain and wanted him to let go. His mother suddenly decided to use her voice and started yelling at me for hurting him, and got out of the car and went to his side to check his wrist. I wanted to check his wrist too, but was afraid of him losing it even more. He brushed it off and told his mom it was nothing, and started the car again. Back home, he went straight to the guest room. I decided to spend the next night at my parents' house to decide what to do. My mother and his are friends anyway. I didn't say anything, but they told me later that night that his mother visited in the morning and told them about the fight. The thing is, she told them we had an argument without mentioning how he started it and wouldn't stop with all the screaming, and how he grabbed my face and only told them about me scratching him. Now, my family is lecturing me about how I should respect him and consider starting counseling. By family, I mean my mother and little brother. My dad didn't say anything. I tell them how it went and tried to show them the bruise on my jaw, and they wouldn't listen because his mother can't possibly lie to them and the boy they watched growing up can't be this bad. But the daughter they raised can lie and be this bad. For God's sake, they know how I don't tolerate raised voices and avoid heated arguments at any cost. But none listen to me now, except for my big brother. Ham and my soon-to-be ex are close friends. What hurt me is, instead of at least comforting me, they're taking a side, while they saw him raise his voice before and call his coworker names. Is it because my little brother brought his GF home and they gave her my room so she can be close to college and are scared that if I break up with him, I would come back to stay with them and ruin everything? I have a stable job and can take care of myself just fine. I want to go back to break up with him and pack my things, but can't even look him in the eye now for what he made me go through. He called and texted, but like I said, I don't even want to hear his voice. He apologized for what he did in a few texts. I'm thinking about showing them to my family, but I feel sad I need to do that so they support me emotionally. All my things are there and I never did this before because he's my first everything. I'm mad that his mother lied for him while my family didn't even listen to me. I'm thinking EF them all except my big brother. Now for some comments. Comment 1. NTA and you need to break up with this dude. It may be a little awkward for a little bit with your mom and his mom being friends, but in no way can you let this dude put his hands on you and scream in your face like that, especially in front of people. Please get out of this relationship before he escalates any further. Comment 2. Abusive. Plus, he was 24 and she was 17 when they got together. OP literally never got to be an adult without this creep, and apparently her parents were okay with this. Whatever you do, OP, prioritize safety. Don't go back unless you're with a trusted friend and/or ask the cops to be present while you get your stuff. All of that is far more important than your useless family. That your parents were okay with this shit hitting on you when you were 17 and he was 24 tells me all we need to know about them. Unfortunately, they are not people on whom you can rely. First things first, stay safe and do not go back to this creep. Take some time to be single as an adult. Learn who the heck you are. Stay out of relationships for a while. Listen to your own brain, make friends with yourself. Comment 3. He is actively pushing her to have a baby. She needs to get away before he's successful. Did he ever have other relationships and how did he behave toward those girls? Comment 4. He is becoming more violent against you and having the confidence to do it in public. This is just not good at all. Comment 5. And he now knows his mom will lie for him, and he will always have a gang at his back to berate and help him beat her down. This is headed in a very bad direction. Boyfriend's mom will get to raise her baby however she wants. Date 1. The night I shared that post, I didn't sleep a wink but had to go to work anyway. I didn't want to go back to my parents' house but had nowhere to go, which made things even more complicated. I was tired, and all I wanted was to sleep, but my younger brother wouldn't let me. He kept trying to talk about it and repeating the things his mother told them. I literally felt like my eyes were going to shut on their own from exhaustion. Suddenly, I felt his hand under my chin. When I looked up, his face was so close to mine, checking the bruise, and I pushed him. I know what I did is wrong, but at that moment, he wasn't my younger brother or anyone I know. I don't know how to explain this part, but it was sudden and I didn't realize what was happening. I guess I just don't know why I pushed him. Not too hard, but enough to make him back off a little. I think lack of sleep messed with my head, but still, when I realized what was happening, I apologized immediately, but he didn't take it well. My mother told him, "It's okay. She's just exhausted," and then said, "Why didn't you just show us the bruise yesterday?" I told her, "That's exactly what I tried to do, but you wouldn't listen." In her defense, it was covered with makeup and didn't look bad. "Okay," she said. "My partner and I need to sit down and sort things out, and that I should apologize for the scratch too." I did the moment it happened. She also offered to call and ask him to come tomorrow so we could talk and fix things. I was so tired to argue with her, so I grabbed my things and got out. I'm writing this post from my hotel room. It's temporary, yes, I have a stable job but can't afford staying here for long. I need to be careful with my money since I'm going to need to find myself a place, buy furniture, and other things. I sent him a long, descriptive text where I mentioned everything that happened that day, even mentioned how it wasn't the first time but this one left a bruise, including the scratch, and apologized for it again. Everything just like one of you advised me to do, and I got a response, so I guess it's something. My big brother made it clear to me that he doesn't care if they are close friends. Family comes first, and that he will bring a friend with him to help me pack my things when I'm ready. He also offered me to stay with him as long as I need, but I can't do that. He and his fiancée had a baby recently and her mother is staying with them to help for a few months. I don't want to make things hard for them. The only friend I have is on a business trip. She was supportive and said I can stay with her when she comes back Saturday. So I'm waiting for now. She's the only friend I have that I can trust. I never felt the need to have more than one since him, and I used to do pretty much everything together. I can't help but feel like I'm overreacting. I do want to leave and am acting on it, but then again, this thought keeps crossing my mind that he's not always like this. I know I'm an idiot. I'm just sharing this with you because I can't be this honest with my brother and definitely can't say this to my family too. My brother advised me to not answer his calls and texts until I leave, so I don't give him a chance to talk me out of this. My father called me this morning and apologized for not saying anything. He offered money, $1,500. I don't think I should accept it. By the way, he loves my mother to death, and for him, whatever she says goes since forever. So to be honest, I'm not disappointed that he didn't stand up for me that day. At least he didn't try to shut me up. For now, I'm getting any paperwork I might need, thanks to my big brother. In the comments, I know better now. I feel I should clarify something. Yes, we dated for 8 years, but we didn't become exclusive until I was 18. He actually waited. It was my older brother's idea, though. His only condition was that nothing would happen between us until I turned 18. You know what I mean by nothing? I think because they were close friends and knowing that my brother was against it all at first made him keep his promise. That's all. I will try and give a final update when I sort everything out. Thank you again. Comments. Comment 1. He didn't wait, he groomed you. This is all so disturbing. Your family is so wrong. Please move in with your friend and cut your family off completely. They are encouraging you to stay with someone who laid hands on you, and now that he knows he will get support from your family when he abuses you, it will only get worse. Your family is gross and abusive as well. Get away from all these people as fast as you can. There is a better life out there for you. There are better people out there. How many times do you have to apologize for an accidental defensive scratch? Any man grabs my face, I would scratch his eyes out. Once someone lays hands on you, you are allowed to defend yourself. No apologies. There is a better life for you out there if you can muster just enough courage to get away and cut contact now. Comment 2. I do realize this now. I'm working on everything you mentioned. I just hope everything works out well. Thank you. Comment 3. But I just hope everything works out. While I'm guessing you mean leaving him, right? 'Cause you do know this won't be the last time it will happen if you continue this relationship. Ditch his ass and do it with someone around you as well. Don't be alone with him no matter what happens. Even if he says he would like to speak to you alone, do not accept unless someone is with you and only if it's in public. Good luck, stay safe. Update 2. A few days after my last update, my brother and a friend of his went with me to pack my belongings. Thank God they did because we found his mother there too. My ex kept asking to talk with me in private, but both my brother and his friend told him to say whatever he wanted with them in the room. He apologized and asked me to give him another chance, with his mother telling him to man up and stop begging the whole time. I called my friend to thank her again and let her know that I would be staying with my brother for the time being. I stayed with him for 2 weeks. Honestly, I didn't expect his SIL to be that kind. Both she and her daughter, my brother's fiancée, were good to me. I tried to help with the baby, which helped me keep my mind off things a little and not feel like I was in the way. I mentioned in my original post that my ex and I were trying for a baby. I also mentioned in my first update how I felt tired all the time. I thought it was because I was going through a tough time, but I didn't know I was pregnant until I miscarried. With everything going on, I didn't pay attention to my period. I started having period-like cramps the night before. I continued to have cramps the next day, which turned into bleeding, and it was like having a bad period, but the bleeding continued to worsen over the course of the day. I probably wouldn't have even thought I was pregnant if my SIL hadn't told me that I might be miscarrying. I was 6 weeks along. Other than the miscarriage, which I'm still a little shaken by, everything has been good with me. I found myself a place 30 minutes from work. I'm adjusting. The last time he showed up at my work was a week ago or so. 2 of my coworkers told him to never show up again since he has no reason to be there, and he never did since. I'm in C with my mother and younger brother. She tries to reach me through my older brother, but he told me it's better if I stay in C, at least for a few months. When I posted, I was more focused on his mother lying to my family, but the real issue was him doing that in front of her. If she hadn't visited and lied, I probably wouldn't have told my family and never posted here. So I would have never known that's not how things work and that's not how my partner should treat me. I sometimes think about my ex. I know I seem weak, but I've known him for so long and he was my first everything. But now I don't have to worry about a lot of things. I wake up relaxed and don't have to worry about messing something up. By the way, my first therapy session is this Tuesday. That's all. Thank you. Comments. Comment 1. NTA at all. It's completely understandable that you're feeling shaken by everything you've been through, including the miscarriage. Sorry to hear about that, by the way. It's important to prioritize your own well-being and take the time you need to heal. It's great that you're taking steps like going to therapy to take care of yourself. Remember, you deserve to be treated with respect and kindness in any relationship. Keep focusing on yourself and your own happiness, and things will get better with time. You're doing great and I'm rooting for you. Comment 2. I'm sorry about your miscarriage, but so happy with the rest of your update. You've got a lot to be thankful for. Your freedom, your own place, and an 8-year mistake in the rearview mirror. You have a support system in your brother and SIL and coworkers that have your back. I think your brother's right. Stay and see with your mother for a few, or many, months, or as long as she's still friends with mommy dearest and younger brother too. You don't mention your dad. Is he supportive since he sides with your mom? Be happy, but stay aware of your surroundings for a while. Your ex spent a long time grooming you into someone he had control over. He may not be happy that you walked away from him. Give yourself some time to heal and recover emotionally, and then be ready to get out socially with friends. I'm not saying to jump into a new romance. Take your time. You'll know when you're ready for that. You were so young when you got involved with your ex that your instincts may need some time to catch up to the new you. Pay attention to them. Comment 3. He hurt her because he felt like he had a right to punish her for embarrassing him in front of his mother. I'm so glad she got out. Behavior like this always escalates. They feel more and more comfortable punishing you as if you were a child and your behavior is something that's their responsibility to correct. It's effing disgusting. Comment 4. Jesus Christ. This whole entire family deserves to rot and burn away. No replacement. 1798 minus the older brother and his in-laws. Comment 5. Squeezing her chin so hard it bruises is way too close to choking for my comfort. I'm glad OP got out. Her mother and younger brother are scum. I know it's traumatizing to have a miscarriage, but I can't help but feel like that was the universe freeing her from that horrid man. Imagine if she had to spend 18 years co-parenting with a man who puts his hands on her when he's mad. I am glad her older brother has her back. I am so glad she isn't going through it all alone. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Husband demanded I quit my job to be a stay-at-home wife, then secretly cheated with a 20-year-old and stole our savings. Now he wants me back when I filed for divorce. Hi everyone. I love my husband, and he's an amazing man, but we have flaws like everyone else. We both aged out of foster care and met at a youth fulfillment program, basically a work camp that helps kids with no families learn the fundamentals for living, finances, and certificates as needed. We were both 18 and stayed in contact after the program ended. He made it clear he liked me, but I was truly petrified of men at that point in my life due to past experiences and rejected him a bit hard. I reached out to apologize and we became friends. Then a year or two later, I saw he posted on Snapchat he was in my area. I asked if he would want to go on a date so I could practice being comfortable around guys, and he agreed. He never made a move, never touched me, never made weird eye contact. If I said no, he didn't ask a second time, not even as a suggestion. We went on these platonic dates for months with nothing happening, and one day I asked for a hug, and then asked for a kiss, and he asked me to be his girlfriend. We got married a year after, and our 7-year anniversary is around the corner. We agreed we would not even think about having kids until we were older, since both of us were the product of young parents. We've really just only focused on getting by, on using as little money as possible, and saving up every dime to buy a house. Thankfully, we got our house a few months ago, and we were both able to quit our second jobs and for the first time only work regular 9-5s. Yay! I've discovered I really like gardening and baking, and I love having a real home. We have been discussing adding to our family by having a baby, and I feel very ready to be a mom. Scared still, yes, but ready. But my husband brought up how sad I would be if I had to quit, since I've worked so hard. I told him I had zero plans to quit. I would only take maternity leave, plus my company allows maternal and paternal remote options for 1 year after birth, so I can just work from home if needed. I know it's a lot to do with a newborn, but giving up the security of my paycheck is simply not an option. He told me this was what we worked for, to make our own perfect family, opposite from what ours were like, and I was blindsiding him by changing my plans. I told him no plan has changed. I can have a career and be a mom. Plenty of women do it. He doesn't have to quit his job to be a dad, so why should I? He said it wouldn't work for a baby's needs, and I told him, okay, since I make more money than you do, why don't you quit and I go back to work remotely after healing from birth? That way we have both on deck and we don't have a severe loss of income, as I make $189,000 per year and he makes $52,000 per year. He mentioned that if I trusted him fully, this shouldn't be a problem. I told him I trust him, but I don't trust our current economy. But I left out that I really do genuinely think quitting my job with no savings, wiped out by getting the house, and relying on a man is absolutely stupid. He had plans made previously with his parents and had to leave, so we said we would pick the conversation back up when he gets home. But he's very, very upset. Madder than I have ever seen him, and I don't understand why he just assumed I would quit. Not only do I not understand it, but it makes me trust him a lot less than I did yesterday. I have a bad habit of running for the hills when problems come up, and not gonna lie, this is making me really nervous. Thank you for reading all of this if you have. I'm open ears to what could be going through his mind or why he is thinking like this. It really just doesn't seem logical to me. He's been watching all of these videos of stay-at-home wives / girlfriends / slaves / submissive / erotic and happy ending, I guess. He texted me right before I got off work and asked me to pick up food from one of our usual date night spots. I got home and noticed his car had boxes in it and a woman I didn't know. I tried opening the door, but it was locked, and she just looked at me. What little was left of our savings he took, and both of our cats. I didn't see this coming at all. I haven't told any of my friends yet. His adoptive parents have been dropping me off food that I can't even force myself to eat. I haven't cried yet. I'm kinda still in shock. I wish I had a family to run to, but for now, the internet has to do. I haven't answered any of his calls or texts. He keeps trying to check in, ask if I'm okay. How the fuck would I be okay? I never thought he would cheat. I asked him to promise if there was ever someone else, he would just tell me as soon as he knew. But they'd been together at least 6 months. So while he was calling me selfish for not wanting to put in my 2 weeks and be a stay-at-home wife, he was dating her the entire time, planning a future with her the entire time. I feel stupid. I should have taken everyone's advice more literally. When I asked him to go to therapy, he wouldn't. His parents think he's having some type of mental break. I should have stayed afraid of him and avoided him. I should have chosen a better outcome for myself. I just feel like the same girl that no one wants to love anymore, all over again. I know what he did isn't my fault. I know I could never stop him, and really, do I want a man who doesn't want me? Never. But that just doesn't stop it from hurting. Update. To really want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to all of the people who reached out to me with well wishes, especially other spouses who experienced similar. It helps so much more than you could ever know. There have been a few things that have happened, and honestly, I'm exhausted in every way possible, so the input from folks has really been useful in organizing my thoughts and keeping an open mind. I couldn't help it, but for days I compared us and wondered what the fuck he could have been thinking, until I realized she's a carbon copy of his biological mother, or at least the stories he heard about her since she died when he was 5. I hate that I feel bad for him still, even after what he's done. But we offered him support for his thoughts, we urged him to go to therapy, I even offered to pay for it myself, and he was too prideful. I lost both of my parents too, at an older age, with even more core memories with him, so it wasn't a boat he was in alone. But he chose to act like it was and wallow in self-pity. He called me on our 7-year wedding anniversary, minutes after midnight, whispering apologies and saying he feels so guilty. I asked for what, and he just said, "Well, you know what we're going through." I told him, "No, it's what you're doing. We are going through nothing. I was abandoned by my husband, exposed to God knows what, while you were fucking her and coming back home to me. We were still having sex like every single day. So I made sure he knew just how disgusting I thought he was. Then he got pissed and told me he only started cheating because I couldn't follow his lead. Sir, look where you led yourself. Our entire marriage, I've pushed him career-wise. Hell, the job he is in right now I applied to on his behalf. Meanwhile, I'm pretty sure he doesn't or didn't even know what my full job title is. I pushed him to reach out to the adoptive parents when he started getting family obsessed, but neither of us were ready for a kid. He went on about how I broke my promise first when I decided I didn't want to be a real mom by not quitting, that I was turning his adoptive parents against him because they are refusing to meet his new girlfriend. He blamed me again and then had the nerve to say that this could all be put on pause if I can learn how to make decisions that benefit a family and not myself. I asked point blank if he was insinuating that we could get back together if I quit my job. He told me yes. I will always love you. But you make things more difficult than needed. I hung up and blocked him on everything. I spent the rest of the night hugging wine in the bathtub and wondering what the hell kind of person I'd been sharing my heart with. The next day he went public with their relationship, posting a photo to Instagram. Most of our mutual friends reached out, with my closest friends commenting less than kind things on the photo. As it turns out, he and his new girlfriend have been together for 7, almost 8 months. She is 20, her son is around 2. I reached out to her ex, the father of her son, who she had left to be with my ex-husband. She moved out in the middle of the day and took their kids, so he was just as blindsided, if not more, than I was. We met up and went for a walk, stopped by a bar, literally cried, laughed, hugged each other, sang songs way too loudly, and sobbed in public like a lunatic. But it helped so much. We also made sure to exchange evidence for any court battles. I'm a little iffy towards him for now, considering that they had quite the age gap. She was 17 when they met and he was 26. He said she'd lied about her age and they met at a college party, and the next thing he knew she was pregnant. He gave her money for an abortion, but she came back with baby clothes instead, so he tried to do the right thing and moved her in with him. Also, she's not actually allergic to cats. She just hates them. She also was very aware he was married and has been to the house multiple times. He admitted he had cheated on her before their son had been born, while she was pregnant, but that she didn't tell him she knew until after she had moved out with their son. He said he was still texting her every day, not just about their son, but also about possibly working things out. He wants her back, but she seems to be head over heels for my husband, just like I was. I told him good luck. But yeah, not the direction I'm going in at all. This time, he made his bed and he will lay in it for good. Our chances of reconciliation are 0. I have never accepted someone back into my life after a betrayal, and it won't start now. At first, I wanted to make sure the divorce was going to be short and as simple as possible, even if it meant giving up some things. But after that conversation, I have decided I'm fighting tooth and nail for everything I can possibly get. I live in a no-fault divorce state, but my state does have special laws for adultery. I can still sue for it here, and the divorce attorney I've consulted said it looks pretty good that I won't have to pay him alimony. He also told me to look into every single banking transaction in my accounts, as he did not think they got an apartment on his income without some extra cushion, aka my money, and he was right. Last year, my ex-husband told me he got really into stock trading and if he could invest some of my money as well. Guess who was never doing any stock trading, and the screenshots he showed me were all fake / pulled from somewhere else. He had been sending that money to his girlfriend or saving it for their new place. I've been pretty enraged since finding that out. He asked his adoptive parents to ask me to allow him visitation rights to see the cats after he had to give them back once he realized his new GF is allergic to them. I relayed that he needs to first run me my fucking money and then take it up with the judge. I didn't think visitation was a real thing for pets, but according to my lawyer, it very much is. I officially filed for divorce yesterday, and he emailed me quite the colorful email about how selfish and bitter I am for not putting my pride aside and being so fast to file for divorce and refusing to let him stop by the house to see the cats. That now he's accusing me of cheating. I read somewhere that you never really know someone until you're divorcing them, and I can truly confirm that is true. I felt like you guys deserve some sort of update, considering how much support I was given. I can't share more details for now, but really thank you all again. Now on to the next story. Story 4. My sister married my husband's brother, then made fun of my small wedding in her toast, not knowing that we were actually the ones who paid for her expensive wedding. My husband and I have been married for 5 years, and I thought we had a pretty stable life. My younger sister, Sally, has always been the competitive type, but I never expected it to turn into full-blown pettiness. She's the kind of person who thrives on comparing herself to others and constantly needs to prove she's doing better than everyone else. Growing up, this was mostly harmless sibling rivalry. She'd brag about getting better grades or having more friends, but I always figured it was just a phase she'd grow out of. Apparently, I was wrong. About 2 years ago, Sally started dating my husband's younger brother, Andrew. It all started at one of our family barbecues. They hit it off immediately, and within a few months they were inseparable. First, I thought it was kind of sweet. My husband, Jake, was thrilled because it meant our families were becoming closer. I had some reservations about mixing family and relationships, but I told myself it could be nice having my sister as my sister-in-law. Spoiler, I was wrong about that too. The first signs of trouble started small. Sally seemed to turn every interaction into a subtle competition. She'd make little comments about our home, our jobs, even our dog. Stuff like, "Wow, your house is so cozy. Andrew and I were thinking of something bigger, but this is cute." Or, "Oh, Jake's still working at his old company? That's great, he's so loyal. Andrew is thinking of moving to a more senior role soon." I tried not to let it bother me. I mean, that's just Sally being Sally, right? But it was constant and it started to wear on me. When Sally and Andrew got engaged about 6 months ago, I was genuinely happy for them. I congratulated her, offered to help with planning, and even shared some tips from my own wedding experience. But Sally waved me off, saying, "Thanks, but we're going for something completely different from what you did. No offense." I didn't think much of it at the time, but that was just the beginning. Sally and Andrew decided to have this massive, over-the-top wedding. We're talking about a venue that probably costs more than our annual salaries combined. A designer dress, a 5-tier cake, a live band, and a guest list of 250 people. They even planned destination bachelor and bachelorette parties in Vegas. Every family gathering turned into an opportunity for Sally to brag about her wedding. She'd say things like, "We're really trying to set a new standard for weddings in the family," or, "It's going to be a real experience, not just a wedding." It wasn't just the wedding talk that got to me, though. Sally started taking digs at my marriage. She'd make comments like, "Andrew's so thoughtful. He's always surprising me with gifts. Does Jake ever do that for you?" Or, "I feel so lucky to have found someone who's really ambitious." It was exhausting. Jake told me to ignore her, but it wasn't easy. The real turning point came during the wedding planning. Unbeknownst to Sally, our parents and Jake's parents had been quietly worrying about how much this wedding was costing Andrew and her. Andrew makes a decent salary, but he's also drowning in student loans. Sally, on the other hand, doesn't work and has expensive tastes. My parents and in-laws didn't want them to start their marriage in financial ruin, so they decided to pitch in. Jake and I even contributed a significant amount as a goodwill gesture. We didn't want to make a big deal about it, so we kept it quiet. Sally, of course, assumed Andrew was footing the entire bill. She'd gush about how lucky she was to have a fiancé who could give her such a luxurious wedding. I figured it wasn't worth correcting her. Let her have her moment, I thought. But then came the wedding day, and everything blew up in a way I could have never predicted. The ceremony itself was beautiful, no complaints there. The venue was stunning, the decorations were gorgeous, and Sally looked amazing. For most of the reception, I kept my distance from her, not wanting to deal with any drama. But then came the wedding toasts. Sally stood up to give a speech, and that's when things took a turn. Her toast started off sweet, thanking the guests and talking about how much she loved Andrew. But then, out of nowhere, she made a backhanded comment about how not everyone gets the better end of the deal, and how she was so lucky to have a husband who could give her the wedding of her dreams. It was painfully obvious she was targeting me. The room fell into awkward silence, and I could feel my face burning with embarrassment. Jake squeezed my hand under the table, silently telling me not to react. Then, out of nowhere, my mother-in-law stood up. She's usually a quiet, reserved woman, so I was shocked when she spoke. She calmly told the room that Jake and I had paid for a significant portion of the wedding. The room went dead silent. Sally's face turned ghost white. She tried to laugh it off, but it was clear she was mortified. The rest of the night was painfully awkward. Guests whispered among themselves, and Sally avoided eye contact with me for the remainder of the reception. After the wedding, Sally confronted me. She accused me of humiliating her and letting my mother-in-law ruin her special day. I told her the truth, that we never intended for this to come out, but her constant need to compete had gone too far. She stormed off in tears, and we haven't spoken since. Andrew texted Jake the next day, apologizing on Sally's behalf but saying she was deeply upset. Apparently, she felt betrayed that we hadn't told her we were contributing and thought we'd made her look bad on purpose. Jake told him we hadn't planned for this to come out and that Sally's behavior during the toast had been out of line. Andrew seemed to understand, but Sally has been telling anyone who would listen that I sabotaged her wedding. Now, mutual friends are reaching out asking what really happened. Some are siding with Sally, saying my mother-in-law was out of line. Others think she got what she deserved. I never wanted this drama, but now it feels like my relationship with my sister is completely broken. What am I even supposed to say to her now? I'm in this situation. Do you guys have any advice or suggestions? Because I could really use anything at this point. Update 1. The fallout from the wedding was nothing short of explosive, and honestly, I should have seen it coming. Sally didn't just go radio silent like I had hoped. Instead, she launched a full-scale social media rampage that felt like it was directed squarely at Jake and me, even if she never mentioned us by name. It started the very next day with cryptic Instagram stories. She posted things like, "Some people just can't stand to see you happy," and "It's always the ones closest to you who betray you." A few hours later, she shared a meme that said, "Fake family is worse than fake friends." At first, I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, thinking maybe she was venting about something else. But then came the posts, and there was no mistaking who they were about. She wrote this long, dramatic status about how some people pretend to support you but only do it to control you and take credit for your success. It was full of vague accusations about being used and betrayed, with lines like, "I thought your family was supposed to have your back, not sabotage you." The comment section turned into a mess. Some of her friends and a couple of distant cousins chimed in with generic supportive messages like, "Stay strong, girl," and "You don't need that kind of negativity in your life." Meanwhile, my phone started blowing up. Friends and extended family were confused and wanted to know what was going on. My cousins texted me privately, asking for the real story. Jake's side of the family wasn't as subtle. His aunts and uncles started calling my in-laws, trying to get the scoop. Some of them were genuinely curious, while others were clearly fishing for gossip. It felt like we were at the center of a soap opera. The most surprising reactions came from Andrew's side of the family. His siblings were mortified by Sally's behavior. Andrew's older sister, Rachel, who has always been close to Jake, called us to apologize. She was furious that Sally would try to publicly shame us, especially after we had gone out of our way to help her and Andrew financially. Rachel didn't hold back, saying that Sally was acting like a spoiled brat and that Andrew needed to get her under control. I didn't disagree, but I still felt awkward about the whole thing. Our mothers were caught in the middle of all this chaos. My mom was heartbroken by Sally's behavior. She called me in tears, saying she didn't understand why Sally was doing this and asking if there was any way to fix it. On the other hand, Jake's mom, who had been the one to spill the beans at the wedding, was more pragmatic. She told me she didn't regret speaking up because someone had to put Sally in her place, but she also felt bad about how messy things had gotten. The two moms were in constant communication, trying to figure out how to manage the situation and prevent it from escalating further. My mom suggested we all sit down and have a family meeting, but Jake's mom shot that idea down immediately. She said that Sally isn't ready to hear reason right now and that she's too focused on playing the victim. Things only got worse when Sally took her drama offline and started reaching out to people directly. She called one of my closest friends, Sarah, and unloaded her version of the story. According to Sarah, Sally claimed that Jake and I had deliberately humiliated her at her wedding to make ourselves look good. She said I had always been jealous of her and that this was my way of getting back at her. Sarah didn't buy it, thankfully, but the fact that Sally was dragging my friends into this was infuriating. I found out later that she'd also reached out to some of Jake's cousins, trying to sway them to her side. A few of them told her point blank to drop it, but others just listened and stayed neutral. The biggest blow came when Sally went after our parents. She called my mom, accusing her of taking my side and not supporting her enough. My mom tried to reason with her, saying that she loved both of us and just wanted the family to move past this. But Sally wasn't having it. She accused my mom of always favoring me and said she felt like an outsider in her own family. That phone call left my mom devastated. Sally also called Jake's mom, demanding an apology for what had happened at the wedding. Jake's mom refused, saying she had only spoken up because Sally's toast was uncalled for and hurtful. She told Sally that she should be grateful for all the support she'd received instead of trying to tear everyone down. That didn't go over well. Sally hung up on her, and the two haven't spoken since. Andrew, meanwhile, was caught in the middle. Jake and I didn't hear much directly from him during this time, but Rachel told us that he was completely stressed out and unsure how to handle Sally's outbursts. According to Rachel, Andrew felt guilty about the whole situation but didn't want to upset Sally by defending us too strongly. It sounded like he was trying to play peacemaker, but it wasn't working. Jake and I tried to keep our heads down and not engage with Sally's antics, but it was hard to ignore the ripple effects. Some of our mutual friends started distancing themselves, probably because they didn't want to get dragged into the drama. A few even unfollowed Sally on social media because her constant ranting was getting to be too much. The final straw came about a week after the wedding when Sally sent me a long, rambling email. It was full of contradictory emotions: anger, hurt, and a weird sort of entitlement. She accused me of ruining her wedding, being jealous of her, and trying to steal her spotlight. She also demanded an apology from me and Jake, as well as a promise to stay out of her life if we couldn't be supportive. I didn't respond. At this point, I don't know if there's anything I could say that would make things better. Jake agrees that it's best to just let her cool off, but part of me wonders if this is something she'll ever get over. Update 2. Things took a dramatic turn when Sally crossed a line I never imagined she'd dare to cross. She showed up at my workplace. It was a normal Monday morning. I was at my desk, trying to get through emails, when the receptionist buzzed to let me know someone was there to see me. I wasn't expecting anyone, so I was a little confused, but I told her to send them up. Moments later, Sally burst through the office door. Before I could even process what was happening, she launched into a tirade. She started yelling about how I had betrayed her, ruined her wedding, and made her look like a fool. My coworkers stopped what they were doing and stared, their jaws practically on the floor. I could feel the heat rising in my face as I tried to stay calm and ask her to leave, but Sally wasn't having it. She started screaming louder, accusing me of sabotaging her and stealing her moment. Her voice echoed down the hallway, and I could see people peeking out of their offices to see what was going on. Security was called, and 2 guards arrived within minutes. They tried to escort her out, but she made a scene in the lobby, shouting that I was a fake sister and that our entire family had conspired against her. By the time she was finally removed from the building, I was mortified. My boss, who had witnessed most of the spectacle, called me into his office. I thought for sure I was about to get reprimanded. Instead, he surprised me. He was kind and understanding, saying that he knew family drama could get messy. He reassured me that my job was safe and even offered me a few days off to recover. He mentioned that he knew Jake through mutual professional connections and had heard good things about us, which was a relief in such a stressful moment. When Jake found out, he was livid. He couldn't believe Sally had stooped so low. He wanted to file a restraining order immediately, but I wasn't sure if we were ready to take that step. The mental toll of her actions, however, was undeniable. I was constantly on edge, jumping at every notification on my phone and looking over my shoulder in public. Our usually peaceful home felt invaded by Sally's chaos. Jake and I spent hours at night discussing our options. We debated between taking legal action or trying to preserve what little remained of family harmony. Jake leaned toward the former, while I was still clinging to the hope that Sally would come to her senses. Just when I thought things couldn't possibly get more chaotic, my mom called me in tears to share yet another incident with Sally. This time, it involved a confrontation at Target, of all places. My mom lives about 40 minutes away from Sally, and there's no way this was just a coincidence. Sally had clearly gone out of her way to corner her there. My mom explained that she had been browsing in the home goods section when Sally appeared out of nowhere. At first, my mom thought it was a random meeting and greeted her warmly, trying to stay positive despite everything that had been going on. But Sally wasted no time making her intentions clear. According to my mom, Sally went on a tirade, claiming that I was the favored child and that our parents had always prioritized me over her. She accused my mom of turning a blind eye to what she called my calculated attempts to steal her spotlight. She even brought up childhood grievances, things like how I supposedly got better birthday parties or more praise for my accomplishments, as if every resentment Sally had ever felt was spilling out at once, and my mom was the easiest target. My mom, bless her, tried her best to stay calm and reason with her. She explained over and over that she loved us both equally and had never favored one child over the other. She said she just wanted the family to heal and move past all this drama. But Sally wasn't interested in hearing it. She interrupted my mom repeatedly, dismissing her attempts to mediate and accusing her of being blind to the way I supposedly manipulated everyone around me. My mom said Sally's tone was harsh and combative, almost like she was looking for a fight. The confrontation lasted about 20 minutes, right there in the middle of the store. My mom was completely shaken by the time Sally finally stormed off. She called me from her car, her voice trembling as she recounted what had happened. Hearing her so upset broke my heart. My mom is one of the kindest, most patient people I know, and she didn't deserve to be dragged into this mess. I tried to reassure her, telling her she had done nothing wrong and that this was just another example of Sally's inability to take responsibility for her actions. But deep down, I felt guilty. Even though I knew it wasn't my fault, I hated that my mom was now caught in the crossfire of this ongoing feud. Jake, on the other hand, was livid. He paced the living room as I relayed the story, his fists clenching and unclenching. "This is harassment," he said, his voice low and angry. "She's dragging your mom into her delusions now. Enough is enough. We need to do something." By something, Jake meant legal action. He had been pushing for it ever since Sally's meltdown at my workplace, and now he was more determined than ever. "She's not going to stop," he said. "You've seen that she's escalating, and we can't just sit back and let her keep doing this." As much as I hated the idea of taking legal steps against my own sister, I couldn't ignore the fact that Jake had a point. Sally's behavior was spiraling out of control, and every time I thought she had hit rock bottom, she found a new way to make things worse. We spent the next few days discussing our options. Filing for a restraining order was one possibility, but we worried about how it would affect the rest of the family. My parents were already struggling to navigate the tension between Sally and me, and I didn't want to put them in an even more difficult position. At the same time, I knew we couldn't keep letting Sally bulldoze through our lives unchecked. Meanwhile, Andrew was caught in an impossible position. He reached out to Jake, apologizing profusely for Sally's behavior. It was clear he was mortified and didn't know how to handle his wife's increasingly erratic actions. He admitted that he was at his wit's end and didn't know how to calm her down. Rachel, Andrew's older sister, called me to vent about how embarrassed their entire family was by Sally's antics. She said that Sally's behavior was the talk of their extended family and that everyone was appalled. Rachel even suggested that Andrew should consider counseling for Sally, which I thought was a good idea. However, I doubted Sally would ever agree to it. Sally's social media attacks continued, but now they included vague references to being harassed and not feeling safe. She posted a photo of herself with a caption, "Some people want to see you fall, but I'll keep standing tall." Her followers, who were mostly in the dark about the full story, flooded her comments with support. To make matters even more awkward, some mutual friends started distancing themselves from both of us. A few people reached out to say they didn't want to take sides, while others simply stopped responding to my messages. It was painful to see relationships I had valued for years being affected by this drama. As the days went on, I could feel the weight of the situation pressing down on me. I started losing sleep, replaying the events in my mind and wondering where it all went wrong. Jake was my rock through it all, constantly reassuring me that we hadn't done anything wrong. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd lost my sister for good. The final blow came when I received a letter in the mail from Sally. It was handwritten and several pages long. She accused me of turning the family against her, ruining her reputation, and trying to take over her life. She ended the letter by saying that she wanted nothing to do with me until I apologized for everything. I didn't respond. I didn't even know where to start. At this point, it felt like there was nothing I could say or do that would make things right in her eyes. For now, Jake and I are focusing on moving forward and trying to find some peace. But the damage Sally has caused feels irreversible, and I'm not sure our family will ever fully recover from this. Update 3. Hello, everybody. My husband's entire family took some serious action. His parents, siblings, and even a few extended relatives were fed up with Sally's antics. It started with a group text that turned into an emergency family meeting. The message was clear. They were done sweeping everything under the rug. Jake and I weren't invited to the family meeting, which honestly was a relief. The thought of sitting through what was bound to be a tense and uncomfortable discussion was not something I wanted to experience firsthand. Still, we got all the details later from Andrew and his older sister, Rachel, and let me tell you, it sounded like a scene straight out of a courtroom drama. Apparently, Andrew's father, who is a no-nonsense corporate lawyer and someone who usually steers clear of family squabbles, decided enough was enough. He took charge, and he didn't come unprepared. From what Rachel described, he showed up with a literal folder of documents. This wasn't just some casual conversation. This was a full-blown financial reckoning. He started by laying out every single financial contribution Jake and I had made toward the wedding. From the deposit on the extravagant venue to the designer flowers and premium catering, it was all meticulously documented. Rachel said it was almost shocking to hear it all listed out like that. It wasn't just a few thousand here and there. It was a significant amount of money. And it didn't stop with us. Andrew's dad also went through the contributions the rest of the family had made. Jake's parents had paid for the open bar and a portion of the wedding planner fees. Andrew's older siblings had chipped in for the bachelorette and bachelor parties, which were extravagant destination trips. Even some extended family members had contributed to smaller costs like decorations and party favors. By the end of it, the total amount was jaw-dropping. Then came the real blow. Andrew's dad made it very clear that while the family had supported Andrew and Sally's decision to have the kind of wedding they wanted, they were blindsided by how irresponsibly it had been managed. He didn't mince words, pointing out that the lavishness of the wedding was unnecessary and that the financial strain it caused was unacceptable. But what really drove the point home, according to Rachel, was when he addressed the recent drama. He said that Sally's public behavior had gone beyond just embarrassing herself. It was damaging the family's reputation. Between the social media posts, the confrontation at my workplace, and the spectacle at Target, Sally had dragged the entire family's name through the mud. And now, the family was done quietly tolerating it. The ultimatum was delivered with the kind of precision you'd expect from a seasoned lawyer. Sally and Andrew were told they had two options. The first was to start repaying every cent of the money that had been borrowed for the wedding. This wasn't up for negotiation. Andrew's dad even went as far as to say that if they didn't comply, legal action would be taken to recover the funds. The second part of the ultimatum was that Sally needed to issue a formal apology, not just to Jake and me, but to the entire family. And this wasn't meant to be some half-hearted text or vague social media post. They wanted a genuine, public acknowledgement of her actions and an apology for the hurt she'd caused. Rachel said the room was tense enough to cut with a knife. Andrew, who had been relatively quiet up until that point, tried to defend Sally, saying that she was just under a lot of stress and hadn't meant for things to spiral the way they had. But Andrew's dad wasn't having it. He shut down Andrew's excuses with a firm but calm response, essentially saying that stress didn't excuse the way Sally had treated people. Sally, for her part, sat there in stunned silence. According to Rachel, she didn't interrupt or argue, which was surprising given how combative she had been in recent weeks. Rachel said it was the first time she'd ever seen Sally look genuinely at a loss for words. By the end of the meeting, Sally and Andrew were left with no wiggle room. They had to make a choice. Take responsibility and start fixing the mess they'd created, or face the consequences. Andrew and Rachel told us later that they left the meeting with a clear message. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about respect and accountability, two things Sally had been severely lacking. Andrew, who had mostly stayed quiet throughout the chaos, finally spoke up. He admitted that he felt trapped between loyalty to his wife and frustration with her actions. He apologized to his parents and siblings, saying he never wanted things to spiral out of control. It was clear he was mortified and desperate to salvage what was left of his family's support. By the end of the meeting, Sally had no choice but to agree to their terms. She looked visibly defeated, Rachel said, and even tried to shift the narrative to make herself the victim once again. But the family wasn't having it. Shortly after the meeting, I received a text from Sally. It was a weak attempt at an apology, clearly written under duress. "I'm sorry for how things went down," it read. "Can we talk?" I stared at the message for a long time. Part of me wanted to respond, to hash things out and try to salvage our relationship. But the other part, the part that was tired, drained, and completely over her drama, knew it was time to let go. Jake and I talked about it that night. He was firm in his stance. No more. We had given Sally chance after chance, and every time she had found a way to make things worse. Her half-hearted apology felt like yet another manipulation, more about saving face than making amends. The next day, we made the decision to cut ties. I blocked Sally's number, removed her from all my social media, and told my parents that we needed space. They were heartbroken but supportive, understanding that the constant emotional manipulation had taken a toll on me and Jake. Sally's reaction was predictable. She took to social media again, posting vague messages about losing family to lies and standing strong despite betrayal. This time, though, the response was different. People were tired of the drama. The likes and comments were fewer, and even her staunchest supporters seemed to be losing interest. Meanwhile, Andrew started making small payments toward the wedding expenses. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Jake and I appreciated the gesture, though we made it clear to Andrew that our issue wasn't about the money. It was about the respect and boundaries Sally had trampled over repeatedly. In the weeks that followed, life started to feel normal again. Jake and I focused on our careers, our friends, and the quiet life we'd worked so hard to build. We even took a short trip to the mountains to decompress and reconnect. My parents and Jake's parents continued to communicate with Sally, though they respected our decision to distance ourselves. My mom mentioned that Sally had started seeing a therapist, which I took as a small glimmer of hope. Maybe she would eventually learn from all of this. As for the rest of the family, the fallout was undeniable. Andrew's parents were still upset but seemed to be mending their relationship with him. Rachel told me she was cautiously optimistic that Andrew could steer Sally toward a better path, though she admitted it would be a long road. For me, the biggest takeaway was learning the importance of boundaries. It was painful to cut ties with my sister, but it was also liberating. I realized that family doesn't mean tolerating toxicity, and sometimes the best thing you can do is step away and protect your peace. Jake and I are stronger than ever, and while I miss the relationship I once had with Sally, I've made peace with the fact that it may never return. For now, I'm choosing to focus on the people and things that bring joy to my life, and honestly, that feels like a win. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Stopped babysitting my SIL's kids due to my health issues, but she filed a false police report against me. Now she's facing legal trouble, and her husband left her over her lies. For the past 2 years, I, Arya, 33F, have been the go-to babysitter for my sister-in-law, Gwen, 37F. Her kids, Mia and Noah, were adorable, and despite Gwen's entitled attitude, I genuinely loved spending time with them. I remember when Mia was just a toddler and Noah was a newborn, and I'd spend hours with them while Gwen did whatever she did. I'd play games with Mia, help her with her arts and crafts, and even read books to Noah. It was a lot of fun. Even though I didn't have kids of my own, I found myself growing really attached to them. But things started to change a few months ago. I was diagnosed with a chronic condition, and it hit me harder than I expected. I had to drastically adjust my lifestyle. I used to be full of energy, always doing something, whether it was errands or helping out with family stuff. But now my body couldn't keep up with that pace. I was constantly tired, and even simple tasks felt like mountains I had to climb. The doctor gave me some harsh advice. I needed to cut back on physical and mental stress. At first, I tried to ignore it, hoping that I could push through it. But it quickly became clear that this wasn't something I could ignore. There were days when I couldn't even get out of bed without feeling completely drained. So, I reluctantly made the decision to tell Gwen that I wouldn't be able to babysit regularly anymore. I explained everything. How my health had taken a turn and how I needed to prioritize taking care of myself. I wasn't asking for sympathy, just understanding. But instead of getting the understanding I expected, Gwen snapped. I still remember her exact words. "What do you even do all day?" It stung. I felt like I'd been slapped. But I tried to stay calm. I mean, I wasn't just sitting around all day. I was dealing with constant pain and exhaustion that she couldn't possibly understand. And here she was, making it seem like I was just being lazy. It hurt. She went on to say that it wasn't like watching her kids was hard work and I was being selfish for not helping out. I tried to explain again, but arguing with Gwen is like talking to a brick wall. She didn't listen, and no matter what I said, she was convinced that I was overreacting. I couldn't keep going back and forth with her, so I decided to just stop responding and hope she'd let it go. But of course, she didn't. Every few days, she'd message me asking me when I was going to start babysitting again or telling me how much she really needed help. It felt like I was being guilt-tripped into giving in. At first, I tried to stay strong and stick to my decision. I was genuinely concerned about my health, and I knew I needed to listen to my body. But after a couple of weeks, I started to feel this sense of guilt creeping in. I kept thinking about Mia and Noah. They were so sweet, and I felt like I was abandoning them. It made me question myself and whether I was being selfish. Maybe I was just being too dramatic about my condition. Maybe I could still help out a little, just not as much as before. But then I'd remember how my body felt when I overdid it, and the thought would push me back to the reality of the situation. It wasn't just about me anymore. It was about my health, my well-being, and being able to take care of myself long-term. I didn't want to end up in a worse condition just because I felt guilty. In the end, Gwen didn't respond the way I had hoped. She didn't apologize or even acknowledge how my health was affecting me. Instead, she sulked for a few weeks. I didn't hear from her much, except for the occasional passive-aggressive comment. It was tough to deal with, but I knew that I had to keep my distance for my own sake. A month later, my husband and I were invited to a family dinner at my in-laws' house. Honestly, I had mixed feelings about going. I hadn't seen Gwen since our last heated exchange, and the thought of her confronting me again made my stomach turn. But it was family, and I didn't want to start any drama, so I agreed to go. I was hoping things would be civil and that maybe, just maybe, Gwen would have had a chance to reflect on her behavior. Of course, that didn't happen. The moment we walked through the door, I could feel the tension in the air. Gwen wasted no time making me the center of attention in the worst way possible. She greeted us with that smug smile of hers, the one that made me feel like she was already plotting something. As we sat down at the dinner table, everyone was chatting, catching up, and generally enjoying themselves. It seemed like it was going to be a normal family dinner until Gwen decided to speak up. "So, Arya," she said loudly, "are you still too sick to help out with my kids? Or is it just an excuse because you're too lazy to get off the couch?" The room went dead silent. I could feel my face burning up as I tried to stay calm. I'm not one to make a scene, but that comment, it was a punch to the gut. I hadn't told my family members about my condition. My heart was racing, and I could see everyone at the table shift uncomfortably in their seats. I took a deep breath and replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "I've already explained my condition to you, Gwen. It's not an excuse. I'm just trying to take care of my health." She didn't even flinch. Instead, she smirked and said, "Health, huh? Maybe babysitting would do you some good. Get you off your pity train." She laughed like she just made the joke of the century, and the rest of the table exchanged awkward glances. Then, the rest of the family members started asking me what had happened, and I had to tell them everything. I was furious, but I didn't want to escalate things, especially not in front of my in-laws. I just stared at my plate, clenching my fists under the table. I knew I had to keep my cool, but inside, I was fuming. I wanted to say so many things. About how she had no idea what I was going through, about how her lack of empathy was honestly mind-blowing. But I held my tongue. Fortunately, my husband wasn't having any of it. He jumped in, defending me before I could even get a word out. "Gwen, that's enough," he said, his voice firm but calm. "You can't talk to Arya like that. She's been through a lot, and you need to respect her boundaries." But even with his support, it felt like the damage was done. Gwen wasn't one to back down easily, and it didn't take long for her to start throwing passive-aggressive remarks. "I just don't get it," she said, looking directly at me. "It's not like I'm asking you to do anything hard. Babysitting is just watching the kids for a few hours. I don't understand what the big deal is." Everyone else at the table just stared at their food, hoping the conversation would end. But it didn't. Gwen continued to push. "Maybe if you actually helped out, you wouldn't be so tired all the time." At this point, I was done. I was about to snap, but I didn't want to create a scene. So, I just took a deep breath, forced a smile, and said, "Gwen, I've already told you that I can't babysit regularly right now. If you don't understand that, then maybe we just need to leave it at that." She didn't say anything after that, but did look at me weirdly. I tried to push those thoughts away and focus on the fact that I had stood up for myself. But it was hard not to feel small in the face of Gwen's blatant disregard for my feelings. The rest of the evening was just as uncomfortable as you'd expect. Gwen kept her distance, but the tension in the air was thick, and I felt like I couldn't relax. Gwen's bitterness didn't end there. Oh no, it got so much worse. A few days after the family dinner, I was sitting at home, trying to unwind after another exhausting day, when there was a knock on the door. I wasn't expecting anyone, so when I opened it, I was caught off guard to see a police officer standing on my doorstep. My heart dropped into my stomach as I tried to make sense of what was happening. I stood there in complete disbelief as the police officer explained that he was there to follow up on a theft report. Apparently, Gwen had filed a claim accusing me of stealing money from her house. The words barely registered in my mind at first. A theft report against me? I couldn't make sense of it. I immediately called Gwen to try and get some answers. My hands were shaking as I pressed the phone to my ear, my heart pounding in my chest. The phone rang for a few seconds before she picked up. "Gwen," I said. "What is going on? Why are the police at my door? Why would you accuse me of stealing from you?" She didn't waste any time throwing her insults at me. "You think you can just ditch my kids and get away with it?" She spat through the phone. "Maybe this will teach you not to mess with me. I'm not going to let you get away with anything." I was in shock. This woman had really just gone this far to make my life miserable. The accusation was absurd, and I couldn't believe I was even having this conversation. But it wasn't about reason or logic with her. It was about revenge. It seemed like she was willing to do whatever it took to punish me for setting boundaries and standing up for myself. I tried to stay calm, but I could feel my anger boiling over. "Gwen," I said through clenched teeth, "I didn't steal anything from you. This is insane. Why would you even make something like that up?" But she just laughed, almost like she enjoyed seeing me get upset. "I'm not talking to you about this anymore," she snapped, hanging up the phone. I stood there in complete disbelief, staring at my phone. How could someone be so petty and malicious? I didn't know how to process what had just happened. The police officer had been right there, and Gwen had taken it that far, accusing me of stealing. Stealing. It was so ludicrous, and yet here I was dragged into this nightmare. Thankfully, the police officer could tell that something wasn't adding up. After a brief conversation, he had already started to see through her story. I was an easy target for her, I guess. I had no motive, no opportunity, and certainly no history of anything like this. I had been at home the whole day the money supposedly went missing, and I had a solid alibi. The officer even checked our security camera, which verified my whereabouts. It didn't take long before the whole thing unraveled. The officer was polite and professional, apologizing for the inconvenience and assuring me that everything had been cleared up. But the damage was already done. Gwen had tried to drag me through the mud, and I had been forced to deal with the fallout of her petty behavior. Even though I wasn't in trouble, I still felt shaken by the whole ordeal. Gwen's scheme backfired in the most spectacular way. Once Mark found out about the police report and what Gwen had done, he was livid. I'd never seen him this angry before. He had always been the calm, more patient one in their relationship, but this was the last straw. From what I gathered, he wasn't exactly thrilled with her behavior recently, but the theft accusation seemed to be the tipping point. It was like something inside him snapped. He marched up to her and demanded that she apologize to me. But of course, Gwen refused. She was too proud, too stubborn, and frankly, too embarrassed to admit she'd messed up. I only found out about all this after Mark came to my home to apologize on Gwen's behalf. To be honest, I wasn't thrilled about the situation between them. It felt weird being caught in the middle of their drama. But at the same time, part of me was vindicated. She had tried to ruin my life with her lies, and now the consequences were catching up to her. I couldn't help but feel a little bit of satisfaction knowing that things were unraveling for her. The worst part for Gwen, though, was when the news about the police report reached the school where she worked. Gwen had been a teacher for years, and I guess she'd always thought her position was secure. But once the school found out about the fake theft accusation and the involvement of the police, things started to unravel for her in a big way. While there weren't any legal charges filed against her, the mere fact that she had involved the authorities in such a petty and vindictive way was enough to tarnish her reputation. I couldn't help but feel a little guilty for how much I was enjoying seeing her life unravel. I mean, I know it wasn't nice to enjoy someone's downfall, but after everything she had put me through, it almost felt deserved. It was like the universe was finally giving her a taste of her own medicine. For so long, she'd walked around with this sense of entitlement, acting like the world revolved around her, and now everything was falling apart. Of course, none of this came without its consequences for me. As much as I wanted to move on and put this whole mess behind me, it felt like every time I tried to take a step forward, I was pulled back into the drama. I started to feel bad for the people in our family who were stuck in the middle trying to figure out whose side to take. There were a few family members who felt sorry for her, who thought maybe I had exaggerated or misunderstood her intentions. But for the most part, people were on my side. Still, there were those awkward moments at family gatherings where I had to pretend like nothing was wrong when in reality, things had become extremely tense. Now that Gwen's life has completely fallen apart, it seems like she's trying to pin all of it on me. In the midst of another one of our family arguments, she lost it, pointing her finger and screaming that I was the cause of everything that went wrong. She yelled that if I hadn't been so dramatic about babysitting, none of this would have happened. It was like everything that had gone wrong in her life was suddenly my fault. But I had already learned to keep my cool. I didn't engage in the shouting match. Instead, I calmly responded, "Gwen, I didn't make you mock me at dinner. I didn't force you to file a false police report. You did this to yourself." Felt oddly empowering to say those words. For once, I wasn't going to let her twist the narrative or make me feel like I was in the wrong. I won't lie, part of me did feel a small sense of justice as I watched her spiral. Seeing someone so toxic face the consequences of their actions felt right, even if I didn't take any pleasure in her pain. I've been on the receiving end of her cruelty long enough. I had to remind myself that this wasn't some petty victory for me. This was simply the fallout from her own decisions. The truth was, I never wanted to be in the middle of this drama in the first place. I simply asked for some space to focus on my health and my own well-being. But Gwen had taken that request as a personal attack, and everything that followed her accusations, her lies, her attempts to ruin my reputation, was all her doing. I wasn't the one who escalated things, but I sure wasn't going to be the one to back down. Gwen no longer speaks to me, and honestly, I'm totally fine with that. If she can't respect my boundaries, then we don't have a relationship to salvage. I've learned that there are people who simply aren't meant to be in your life, no matter how close you once were. I've moved on from the drama, and I'm finally at peace with it. The one thing I do regret, if you can even call it that, is the impact this whole thing has had on her kids. Mia and Noah were innocent in all of this, and I've always loved them like my own. I'm still hopeful that they'll grow up to be kinder and more understanding than their mother. I don't want them to inherit her bitterness and toxicity. However, this thing doesn't end here. Gwen is now facing some serious issues for filing that false police report. I honestly didn't think she would be held accountable, but apparently she's being investigated for making a false claim, and it looks like she might have to pay a fine or face some kind of penalty. Frankly, it couldn't have happened to a more deserving person. I don't know exactly what the legal consequences will be for her, but it seems like she's going to have to deal with it in one way or another. And of course, now that the walls are closing in on her, she's still not taking responsibility for her actions. In a move that I can only describe as completely out of touch, Gwen started calling me. She's actually telling me that I should be the one to help pay her fine. Yep, you read that right. She wants me to cover the cost of the mess she created, as if I owe her anything after everything she put me through. It's honestly laughable, and I'm just sitting here shaking my head. At first, I didn't even know how to respond. It's not like I want to engage in this back and forth with her. Every time we interact, it just feels like I'm taking a step backward in my healing process. But this was different. This was her trying to manipulate me one more time, and I wasn't having it. I've spent the past few months working on myself and getting my peace back, and this phone call just felt like a slap in the face. She has no right to ask me for anything after the way she treated me. But then she brought her kids into it and tried to make me feel guilty, and now I don't know what to do. Do any of you have any suggestions? Update 1. Hi guys, so I know some of you have had questions about my condition, and I just want to say up front that I don't feel comfortable sharing too many details about it here. I hope you can understand. But I will say that it makes me feel really easily physically exhausted. It's something I'm still adjusting to, and it's been a bit of a challenge. I'm learning to pace myself, but it's not always easy to explain, especially when it comes to other people's expectations. A few of you also asked how I ended up babysitting for Gwen, So I thought I'd share a little bit about that to give you some context. A few years ago, I lost my job. It was a pretty tough time for me, to be honest. I had been working in a pretty demanding role, and it was the kind of job that left me feeling burned out more often than not. After losing that job, I was kind of at a crossroads, wondering what I was going to do next. I didn't want to rush into another full-time position that would be just as stressful, so I decided to take some time to figure things out. Around that time, I found a part-time remote job that turned out to be a real blessing. It's flexible, it pays well enough, and I can work from home, so it allows me to have more control over my schedule. Honestly, it's been a great balance, and I've been able to make it work, even though it's only part-time. My husband also has a good job, which helps, and together we've been able to stay comfortable financially. So, things have worked out even though it wasn't the career path I expected to be on. Now, because I was working from home and had more free time on my hands, I started looking for ways to fill my days. That's when I ended up babysitting for Gwen. You see, Gwen and I have always been family, but let's just say our relationship has had its ups and downs. She's not the easiest person to get along with, but when I lost my job, I found myself with a lot of spare time, and I thought maybe I could help out with her kids. It started when she had to go on a trip with her friends and her regular babysitter canceled last minute. She asked me if I could step in, and even though I wasn't sure if it was a good idea, I agreed. I thought it would be something temporary, but then as time went on, it sort of became my second job. She kept asking me to babysit, even when she wasn't going on trips. Her kids, Mia and Noah, are cute, and I genuinely enjoyed spending time with them, so it wasn't like I dreaded it. But that's where things started to get complicated. What started as a favor soon turned into something that felt like an obligation. Gwen began relying on me more and more, and before I knew it, I was babysitting regularly. I didn't mind at first, but after a while, it started feeling like I was doing it more for her convenience than for any genuine desire to help. It wasn't long before I was juggling my part-time job with her kids, which was fine when I was feeling good. But when my condition started acting up, it was like I was stretched too thin. Looking back, I can't help but wonder if I should have set boundaries earlier. I think I wanted to be the nice, helpful family member who could do it all, but in the end, it just led to me being run ragged. The truth is, it's okay to say no. It's okay to take care of yourself and put your needs first, even when someone else is demanding your time and energy. Update 2. Hi guys. I know it's been a while, but I finally have some updates. First off, I want to thank everyone who reached out and offered support during that whole crazy situation with Gwen. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but I'm doing okay now. So here's where things stand. Gwen did end up paying a fine for filing that false police report, which honestly, I didn't expect to happen so quickly. She was also warned that if anything like that ever happened again, it could lead to more serious consequences. To be fair, I'm glad she had to face some sort of repercussion for the mess she caused. It felt like justice, but at the same time, I'm not exactly celebrating it. I think Gwen would rather pretend nothing happened and move on. But that's not really how this works, right? The more surprising update, though, has to do with Gwen and Mark. So they're separated now. That's been a huge shock to the family, honestly. I never thought it would get to this point, but things clearly hit a breaking point for them. Mark was furious when he found out about everything Gwen did, especially the false report. That was the final straw for him, and it didn't take long before they started living separately. They've been working on their relationship, though. From what I hear, they're in counseling, and it seems like Mark wants to try and fix things. I don't know what will happen with them long term, but I guess there's still a chance they could work things out if both of them are willing to put in the effort. At this point, I've sort of distanced myself from their drama. It's hard to care when you've been dragged into a situation where you were falsely accused of something you didn't do. As for Gwen, she still blames me for everything that happened. She refuses to talk to me, which at this point is honestly a relief. I don't think I could handle any more of her toxicity. There's only so much a person can take before you have to protect your own peace. And right now, I'm doing what I can to focus on my health and happiness. But despite how toxic everything got, I do feel bad for her. I know her behavior was a result of her own issues, but it still doesn't excuse what she did to me. I've learned the hard way that just because someone's family doesn't mean they have your best interests at heart. Some people will manipulate and take advantage of you, no matter how much you try to help them. And at some point, you have to draw a line. The one thing that's been a bit more difficult to handle is not being able to see Mia and Noah anymore. I miss those kids. They were a huge part of my life for a while, and even though things were complicated with Gwen, I genuinely enjoyed spending time with them. They're both smart, sweet kids. It's weird not being a part of their lives anymore. I know they probably miss me too, but I don't know if I'll get the chance to see them again. Gwen has made it clear that she doesn't want anything to do with me, and I don't want to overstep my boundaries. Update 3. Hi everyone. I know it's been about a month since my last update, but I finally have some new updates for you guys. A lot has happened, and I feel like I've been on a bit of a roller coaster lately. Thanks again to everyone who has reached out to me. Your kind words and support mean the world to me. So, let's start with Gwen and Mark. Believe it or not, they're back together now. Yeah, I was kind of surprised too, given everything that happened. After all the drama, the accusations, and everything else, I thought that would be the end of their relationship. But somehow, they worked things out. It's also bittersweet for me because as much as I'm happy that they're finding a way forward, I still haven't been able to see Mia and Noah. Honestly, I miss those kids. I spent so much time with them, and they became a huge part of my life. But with everything that went down, I can't seem to find a way back into their lives. I know Gwen has made it clear that she doesn't want me involved anymore, and I don't want to cross any boundaries. But I can't help feeling like I'm missing out. I still think about them all the time, and I hope they're doing well. On a more personal note, my condition took a bit of a turn for the worse in the past couple of weeks. I don't want to go into too much detail, but let's just say I've been struggling a lot more physically. I was doing okay for a while, but then I had some flare-ups that really knocked me down. It's been a tough few weeks, and honestly, there were moments when I felt like I didn't know how much longer I could keep going. I was exhausted, and there were days when just getting out of bed felt like an impossible task. I've been seeing my doctor more frequently and adjusting my treatment plan, and slowly but surely, I'm starting to feel a little better. But I'm not going to lie, there's this underlying fear that it could get bad again at any time. I just have to take it one day at a time and be kind to myself. I'm grateful that my husband has been so supportive through all of this. He's been an absolute rock for me, and I don't know what I'd do without him. Anyway, that's where I'm at right now. I'm grateful for the support I've received, and I hope you all are doing well. I'll keep you posted if anything else happens, but for now, I'm just taking life one day at a time. Thanks again for being there for me. It really does mean the world. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Husband helped an injured girl get to hospital. 6 months later, while I'm pregnant, I found her messages getting creepier each day, when he finally tried to distance himself. So, I'll start by saying I'm generally quite a secure person, and I've never felt like I had any issues around this until I read a message sent to my husband yesterday, and I'm kind of spiraling. Sorry, this may be long. For some backstory, my husband does downhill biking. He's done since he was very young, knows his stuff. He's out there every day, generally rides with the same group of guys, but they mostly stick to weekends. My husband goes out every day of the week, luckily, because his job allows him to. If he's out on his own, generally weekdays, and the dogs are free, he'll take the dogs. They love it. So, around 6 months ago, he was out in the morning with the dogs and ended up coming home earlier than usual. While he was out, he found this girl who fell off and had badly injured her arm/wrist. As you can imagine, he's done the same numerous times, knew exactly what to do and where to go to get seen quicker. He got her to the car park, packed the dogs and bikes up, and took her to the GP who referred her to the hospital, and he came home. All good. Around a week after this, one of the guys he rides with sent him a screenshot of a post in a Facebook group that was made for people specifically who build and maintain the bike trails. It went something like, "I'm looking for someone called husband's name who helped me last week when I fell and got me to hospital. He drove a husband's truck and had 3 dogs." Then listed our dogs' names. She had posted in a few groups before being linked to the group for the trail builders who my husband goes out there with. My husband isn't on social media, so he said he could send her his number. She texted him to double-check she had the right person. He said it was, and that he was glad she was feeling better and he was happy to help. She offered him money or to take him for lunch, which he declined and just said again that he was happy to help. They text back and forth every now and then. her initiating, and it's mostly, "Hey, how are you? Hope you're well," etc. Until she starts getting better and can ride again. It turns to, "Hey, we should hit the trail sometime." Now, without tooting his horn for him, he's very good, used to ride competitively when he was younger, same with much of the guys he rides with. Most people at the park know who they are, and generally, if they hear them coming, will just get to the side and watch them pass. He tries to decline her offer in a way not to offend her, but there's no way she can keep up with them. There's a section that's just big jumps to practice on. He says maybe next time he's on those he'll give her a shout and they can meet up there. Eventually that happens and he gives her a few tips, which then turns into her texting him more often about biking, asking for him to tutor her and just general stuff. This goes on for the next couple of months. There seems to be a friendship starting. I've never once had any concerns about this and was quite happy for him to continue, and they do. So yesterday, Monday, he went out with the dogs and bumped into her. Said they spoke for a while and went a cycle with the dogs to wind down before he came home. She started texting him when he got home, and I can see these messages coming through the iPad as I was using it. To be clear, he's not hiding the texts. He openly leaves his phone lying around. No passcode. Lets our daughter play on it. Happy for me to use it. Doesn't get weird or secretive about it in the slightest. He knows the iPad and laptop are linked to his phone, and it can all be seen by anyone using them. He has never given me cause for concern. It's her intentions I'm not too sure on at this point. So anyway, the dogs, we have 3 working gun dogs used in the fields regularly, and while they can look like they're running riot down these trails, they are extremely well trained and tuned into whatever my husband is doing, which becomes more apparent when he's not on the trails and they're following, watching his every move. These texts started on about the dogs for a bit when she sent a text which ended in the following: like a slave looking to please their master. Admittedly, I don't care for emojis and the texting jargon people use nowadays. I don't even know what the face means, frankly, but something about this made me feel icky, and I feel like there's an undertone going on here. He replied but seemed to ignore the last comment. However, this caused me to think/look back on her communication and feel like I've noticed a few red flags. 1. She always initiates. 2. If she doesn't get a reply, she seems to keep sending messages until he replies. 3. Not once has she ever referenced or acknowledged the fact that he's married or has a family, even when he mentioned that he's been away for my birthday or that he's going to our daughter's dancing show. She'll change the subject as if she's pretending we don't exist or to close down any mention of us. 4. She often makes excuses for them to meet up one-on-one. I'm sure there's more, but I don't want to scour through every message and feed into this more than I already have in case it's nothing. But am I crazy for thinking there may be something going on with her? I don't want to bring it up in case it is nothing and I look like I'm being paranoid. It just isn't sitting right. I'm also pregnant, and the hormones are doing their thing. Should I say something or leave it and monitor this more closely for a bit? Or is this the effect of a 30-something pregnant mom whose husband seems to be aging like a fine wine and any female he meets doing what he loves, being in amazing shape due to the hobby? Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1, usually right 2. I'm kind of like your husband. I do a lot of helping people in a different vein though, and there are a lot of rather lonely and awkward people out there who just keep messaging once they have my contact info, men and women. I think you've handled this with grace, but I think it's totally reasonable for you to have a convo with hubby and just say, "Dude, she's pretty pushy and you're not doing anything wrong, but I'd appreciate it if you'd shut her down and just tell her that you're not in a position to be a coach and your riding time is focused so you can't help her. She sounds a little starstruck and needy, but he's not doing anything wrong here, so I wouldn't make it a big hairy deal. OP, thank you. I just don't want to be the crazy wife who's demanding he blocks women because I'm making things up in my head." Comment 2. He ran into her while he was out walking his dogs. Was that a planned meeting? Does she live near you? Oh hell no, that's stalker behavior. He needs to cut her off now. P. No, the bike park. He was up with the dogs when she spotted them and called one over. Honestly, I have no idea where she lives. I know very little about her other than she's much younger than me. Comment 3. Totally not on topic, but what are gun dogs? Sounds like your husband is just being nice, but that chick is being scandalous. Sometimes men don't pick up on this stuff, so I'd bring it to his attention and talk about how you both should handle this psycho-disrespectful woman. P. Hunting dogs. Ours are used weekly for flushing/retrieving. Thank you. I've had enough comments to make me feel confident enough that I'm not being dramatic. We'll be talking to him about it once our daughter's in bed tonight and go from there. Update 1, it escalated quickly. So, my last post got a lot more responses than I thought it would get. I wasn't going to post an update but feel like I owe it to all the people telling me to trust my gut. For those asking why my husband hadn't been more abrupt with her, in a nutshell, he always tries to keep the peace. I downplayed how well-known he is in our town. He comes from a well-known family in our area and was a downhill rider in the UCI and features in various channels. People come here specifically for the bike trails, and typically wherever he goes, there's usually a handful of people who recognize him and want to say hello. It's not a huge town, everyone knows everyone kind of place, and like anyone, he would never want people to come away from any interaction with him with a sour taste in their mouth. After our daughter was in bed, I spoke with my husband, told him my thoughts, and he agreed she was being inappropriate and that he in no way done or said anything that would indicate he was all right with it. He hoped by ignoring it she would get the hint and leave him be. He didn't want to make things awkward or embarrass anyone and admitted he probably should have said something. So, after reading everyone's comments, there were loads of amazing ways people suggested shutting her down, which in hindsight would have been an amazing way to stop her in her tracks. However, he didn't want to ruffle feathers, so we went with, "We're starting to get ready for the baby and have lots to do/prepare and simply don't have the time or energy to be spent on the bikes or meetups, and he will be unavailable to her for the foreseeable." Suggestions. He typed it up, handed it to me for my approval, and I hit send. Minutes later, his phone pings. I'm in the kitchen, he's in the living room, and I see his eyebrows raise and he just looks at me. I go over and he just hands me the phone. The audacity on this girl astounds me. She replied, "Okay. Do you think we could meet up quickly tomorrow?" My heart sank, and I knew exactly what that meant. I burst into tears. In my head, this was the start of my world crumbling. My husband tried calming me down and asked me what I'd like him to do. Block her there and then or ask what she wants to see him for. I wish I just told him to block her, but for some reason I wanted to know more. He replied asking what meeting up would achieve. She just says, there's stuff she would like to talk to him about face to face. I felt like I was literally being punched in the chest and being winded at this point. He eventually gets the point across that he is not going to meet with her and drags it out of her. She tells him that at some point feelings started that turned into fantasies and that basically he could do whatever he wanted to her, that I didn't need to know about it, and she would be happy to keep it that way, as she put it, our thing. It was more graphic than I'm willing to type. I felt like I was still keeping a level head on it until this point. I lashed out, got very, very angry, started crying uncontrollably. My body was vibrating with anger. I've barely slept, woke up crying, felt like absolute crap all day today. I've already got in touch with our friends who run these Facebook groups she joined and asked them to remove her and make sure she doesn't join again. My husband replied last night and told me it's sorted, and I don't have to worry about her. I didn't see the text he sent, but it's there on the iPad, but I can't bring myself to even open the message app after seeing what I saw. It's not fair that someone thinks they can just do something like that, regardless of how it's going to impact an entire family. Currently, I don't want him leaving the house. I don't want him to ever go back to the trails. I don't want the dogs even going up there. The fact she has even touched my dogs makes me sick. So there we are. I still feel like my life's slipping away from me, like someone's trying to steal it. My confidence is shattered. My eyes sting. My head hurts from crying. Don't feel like eating. Don't think I've ever felt as low as I do just now. Husband's trying his best to comfort me, but it will take a while, I guess. He feels very guilty, despite me telling him he's done nothing wrong. I can't believe how quickly my life just changed with a stupid text. So thank you to everyone telling me to believe my gut and everyone else who took the time to comment. Edit. I just want to add, I'm not controlling my husband. I'm not holding him hostage. He had to take them out today. The bike park is almost in our back garden. Him describing how I feel just now like it's a personal attack on me and my family, and I know this happens all over the world. My eyes were never open to it. This man's baby is about to burst out of my body. I don't feel attractive in any sense of the word right now. I feel I'm well within my rights to be a little distraught after seeing a text from a much younger, much fitter girl describing in graphic detail the things she wants my husband to do to her. Update 2. Hey everyone. My last 2 posts got so much attention, and I'm still receiving lots of messages asking what's happened since, and if I know what my husband told her. Anyway, an update before I log out of this account. So, I had so many people telling me I'm crazy, overreacting, need therapy, etc. I get it, I probably was overreacting, but also feel like some people just don't understand the places your head can go when you're heavily pregnant. I know what this girl looks like, and alongside my current self, had no idea why my husband would not take her up on her offer. I'd done nothing but compare myself to her and couldn't understand why he would stay with me if he was getting offers like that. Even to spite my husband making me feel very loved and attractive every day, I convinced myself he found me repulsive and that he would leave me. Madness, I know, but I also had moments of clarity. It's been an emotional few weeks as it is. Did you read the text your husband sent to her? No, I haven't. I ended up deleting the chat from the iPad because I didn't want to see her messages. He told me something along the lines of, I've no idea how or if I've gave you the signal that I was looking for something like that, but I can assure you I'm not, and I don't appreciate the attempt to pull my family apart. Delete my number. Don't try to contact me. Do not try and talk to me if you see me out and about. You've caused a great amount of stress to my family, and especially my wife who is expecting very soon and has access to every message you've sent to me. Leave me alone. Lots of people also commented that I've handled this way better than they would have. Truth be told, I'm constantly swinging between trying to forget this even happened and texting or calling her myself, but I realize the longer I leave it to do this, the more pathetic I'll look. Trying to take the high road, but I'm not going to lie, this has been extremely hard. I also want to focus on the baby and not this right now. All in all though, I feel much better than I did a few days ago. One thing I've taken from this, and far too many people reached out to me to say the same, is how amazing my husband really is. I feel like I've taken him for granted after reading some stories people have shared privately, and I'm so lucky to share my life with him. So that's it. I didn't plan on making an update again, but I've still been getting so many messages asking the same things. But this will be the last. Thanks for all the responses and the few crazies also sending me horrible messages. I know you're reading this, take care. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Parents skipped my graduation to throw a party for my sister who dropped out. When grandparents found out they were funding her while making me take loans, they cut them off. For context, I, 22M, have an older sister, Jackie, 24F, and she has always been the little princess of the family. She was supposed to graduate from college last year, but unfortunately, she couldn't make it. It was not the college that kicked her out, even though she totally would have deserved it since both her grades and attendance were pretty low. Instead, it had been her own decision to drop out of college in her last year so she could pursue music, her one true love apparently. She had joined a band with a couple of her friends from college in her second year, and that had been going strong. But honestly, we all knew that it was just a phase, and it was a terrible idea to quit college over that so she could pursue her dreams of being a rock star full-time. But I did not say anything about it because I did not think it was my place to say anything. More importantly, I don't think that Jackie would have appreciated me having opinions on her life anyway. The people who should have said something and warned her against doing such stupid things ended up encouraging her to quit college so she could become a musician and play gigs with the rest of her band. She was an amateur bathroom singer at best, and that was the biggest difference that she had with the rest of the band members. The rest of them actually happened to be good. I don't even know why they had her in the band in the first place. But anyway, within 6 months of her and all the other 5 of her bandmates dropping out of college so they could take their music career seriously, she was dumped from the group because they had found another vocalist who was definitely much better and even wrote her own lyrics. That had been a huge disappointment for her, and she moved back home with no degree and no future prospects. She tried to start a band of her own, but nobody was interested because none of her friends were musicians, and people were not stupid enough to leave their lives and plans so they could follow her whims and fancies of the moment. Ever since she got dumped from the band, she has been unemployed and has been living off of our parents' money at their house. I think it's pretty weird that my parents are actually supporting this because they think that she has gone through something really terrible and deserves a break. I, on the other hand, think it's just the consequences of her own actions, and I don't feel any sympathy or pity for her. She should have had realistic expectations from herself as a singer. I'm also pretty sure that in the band that she had joined in college, all the other bandmates had been friends with each other since high school, so of course, they were a lot closer to each other than they were with her. Also, I think it's really unfair that they are allowing her to sit at home without paying for anything because it clearly means that they are supporting her financially even though she's obviously a grown person now. The reason I think it's unfair is because when I had graduated high school, they had told me that now that I was no longer in school, I was on my own, and I would have to make my own way through college. It didn't come as a surprise to me since I knew that they had even made Jackie pay her way through college, so I did not expect any preferential treatment. Also, by then, I had realized that my parents had a favorite, and since it was not me, I was prepared to pay my way through college with student loans or by working. But then when I realized that they were just letting Jackie stay with them rent-free, I realized that they were ready to support her even though she was an adult and always kept making excuses for her unemployment and unwillingness to get a job. It started making me think about how differently they treated both of us and how unfair it was. So I confronted them about it, and we even had a lot of fights over this, but they would always kind of emotionally manipulate me and get their way afterward. So I had been finding it very hard to cut them off. But then, about a week ago, they finally gave me the perfect reason to let them go. Last week, I asked them to attend my graduation party, which is taking place in a couple of days. My campus isn't very far away from where I live. It's just 2 hours away, and it'll be very convenient for them to attend. But they started making excuses about how they did not want to come because they had work. I found it really weird because obviously, they could take one day off from work to attend their son's graduation. So I started arguing with them, and eventually, they told me the real reason that they didn't want to attend. And it was because they were throwing a party on the same day for my sister. Coincidentally, the day of my graduation was the day that my sister was supposed to graduate last year, but she never got to do it because 8 months before her graduation, she had decided to drop out. And she had been quite down in the dumps recently because of that, so in order to make her feel better about everything, they had decided to throw her a party. But she didn't know about it yet. So I thought that they could still postpone it and attend my graduation ceremony instead. I expected them to do that because that would have made sense. But instead, they told me that they expected me to understand why they couldn't attend and why they had to be there for Jackie on that particular day. I was actually in disbelief that they were even considering skipping my graduation just so that they could throw some stupid party for a grown woman who had made a bad decision and now she had to live with it. I did not like their decision, and I had already been having a very hard time dealing with my parents, so I just ended up having a huge outburst on the phone call with them. I accused them of never caring about me and always prioritizing Jackie over me, and I told them that even now they were creating a terrible situation for both of their children by never pushing Jackie to do better in her life and always coddling her. They were making sure that she never made any progress, and by pushing me away in favor of Jackie, they were making sure that I never trusted them again. I told them that they were terrible parents, and even then, they did not seem apologetic and just told me that I was overreacting because it was just my graduation, and it was fine if they were not there because it was obvious that Jackie needed them more. I did not see any point in talking to them anymore, so I just hung up and I decided to call my grandparents up so I could ask them to attend my graduation instead. My mom's parents live out of state, so we're not very close with their family, but I'm reasonably close with my dad's parents. They are the ones who helped me take out a student loan and even became co-signers for me because I didn't even want to ask my parents. My grandparents have always been well aware of the fact that I don't really get along with my parents and have always been sympathetic toward me. They have even tried to explain to my father several times that the way they treat me and Jackie so differently is really unhealthy and unfair, but it's never made a difference to them. However, for me, it's always meant more that my grandparents have at least bothered to try and stand up for me, and that's why I've always had a good relationship with them. So if my parents were not willing to attend, I would obviously prefer for my grandparents to be there. So when I called them, I explained the entire situation to them, and I was really upset, so I ended up crying. They could tell that I was really torn up about all of this and started apologizing to me for letting me down, even though I kept telling them that this was not their fault. But it was clear that my grandparents obviously felt really bad about what I was going through, and after a while, They started reassuring me that they would be there for me at my graduation and also told me that they would make sure that my parents paid the price of making me cry not just this one time, but so many, literally almost uncountable times over the years. I could tell that they were serious because they actually sounded furious, and I tried to get them to tell me what they were planning on doing, but they told me that I would find out eventually, and so I had no idea what they were about to do until I heard it from my parents. Later that night, a little after 1 a.m., my dad called me up and immediately started yelling at me, telling me that I was selfish and unreasonable and told me that I was being a drama queen for no reason. I had no idea what he was talking about, so I had to tell him to slow down and explain what was going on because I genuinely had no clue what had happened. At first, he refused to believe me and told me that I was putting up an act of being innocent. But then he finally told me that a couple of hours ago, a little after I had made that phone call to my grandparents, they had shown up at my parents' house and had a showdown with them, and it had not been pretty because apparently, my grandparents had called my parents leeches of the highest order and called Jackie a brainless and lazy cow. It was a bit harsh, but it was pretty valid of them because ever since Jackie had dropped out of college, my grandparents were the ones who had been supporting her by sending money to my parents every month. My grandpa has his own business and is definitely better off than my dad, and he had always taken advantage of that until now when my grandpa finally decided to put his foot down because he could not allow this to continue anymore. My dad had apparently been telling my grandparents that Jackie was trying to look for a job, but she just couldn't find anything that she wanted, which was a total lie. I knew for a fact that Jackie hadn't been looking for a job at all because every time I would go home, all she would do was just laze around at home or go drinking with her friends. She was not interested in getting a job or working hard, and my parents knew that and they were fine with that. But they knew that my grandparents would not be fine with it, so they had been lying to them. And after the conversation with me, I guess my grandparents decided that they were not going to put up with this anymore. I'm pretty sure that they had already figured out before me that Jackie had no intention of getting a job anytime soon because she was being taken care of by her parents, and she didn't feel the pressure to go out of her way to do something, so she was completely content living off of other people's money. Later on, when I spoke to my grandparents, they explained to me that even though they knew that Jackie had no intention of getting a job because it was obviously very unlikely that even in almost a year she hadn't been able to find a job, they had still been helping her out by sending money to my parents every month because she was still their grandchild, and also they did not want my parents to suffer for her. Anyway, after my father told me that my grandparents had shown up at their house and told them that they were putting an end to this nonsense now and they were not going to be sending any more funds to my parents anymore, he told me that I needed to talk to my grandparents and fix this because it was my fault for making a big deal out of the fact that they were not going to show up to my graduation. Then my dad made the mistake of mentioning that instead of sending money to my parents, my grandparents planned on sending money to me from now onwards. And that's when I hung up on my dad and immediately called my grandparents to find out what was going on. They picked up almost instantly, and when I asked them if it was true that they were actually going to be sending me money every month now, they told me that it indeed was true, and it was their way of trying to make up for everything that I had been through in the past. They told me that I had been through enough, and after I graduated, I deserved to have an easy life, and whatever I did with the money, it would be my decision. But they just wanted me to have it because they wanted to support the right person. I felt kind of strange about it at first because I intended on getting a job and working after I graduated like normal people do. But then I decided that I was going to agree to my grandparents' proposition because why not? I did not have to put myself through difficulties to be happy, even though I was entitled to be happy, and my grandparents were offering to help me out. I was not going to reject that, so I happily agreed to whatever my grandparents were saying. After that, my parents kept trying to call me, but I did not feel the need to answer them anymore. Even Jackie had been trying to get in touch with me, but the next morning when I found out that my phone had been flooded with messages and missed calls, I decided to block them all because I really didn't want anything to do with them anymore. All of them had just one thing to say. They wanted me to fix the issue at hand, and they were telling me that I was being unreasonable by refusing to do so because it was clear that they needed the funds more than I did. And Jackie herself kept claiming that she was not emotionally strong enough to handle going out and working right now, which is why she was trying to work on herself and heal from everything that she had been through so she could have a better future, and that I needed to be more understanding of that instead of being so selfish and materialistic about everything. So now, AITA for accepting financial help from my grandparents? Update 1. Hey, thank you so much for the advice and comments. I'm keeping my parents and sister blocked, and I wasn't considering apologizing to them anyway. Reading the comments here and talking to a couple of my friends just reinforced my belief that I was right. I was having second thoughts because I'm the kind of person who finds it very difficult to stay mad at people and hold grudges. But it has taken a lot for me to come to the realization that there is a difference between holding grudges and standing up for myself. And this decision that I have made to cut my family out of my life, that's just standing up for myself, and I think it's the right thing to do. In the past, they had always emotionally manipulated me and taken advantage of the fact that no matter how often I picked fights with them over completely valid things, I would still always come back to them because, well, they were my family and I always believed that they would have my back. Most kids are taught to believe that, and just like everyone else, that's what I thought too. But I was obviously wrong. Their love for me is extremely conditional, and I get that now, and I'm no longer willing to function according to those conditions. So they can call me all the names in the world that they want to. They can be as mad as they want to. It's never going to make a difference to me anymore. Now my grandparents are going to be there at my graduation, and since I know for a fact that my parents won't show up, I'll still be happy that at least the people who actually do love me will be there for me. I've also finally started opening up about my family to my friends, which is something that I haven't done for a really long time. I didn't want to let my friends know that I do not have a perfect family because it felt too personal to share. But then recently I felt like I had to get this off my chest by talking to other people, and so I discussed this recent situation with a couple of my closest friends, and they were completely non-judgmental about it. They gave me really great advice and reassured me that I was doing the right thing, so I had no reason to feel guilty, and I did not need to allow them to constantly treat me like a doormat anymore. So that was good for me, and now that I have finally found the courage to talk to people about how messed up my family is, I don't think I'm going to be backing down after this anymore. I refuse to let people walk over me anymore now. Update 2. So my parents did show up at my graduation, unfortunately. It's insane how when I wanted them to come, they couldn't care less. But now that money is involved, they were suddenly quite eager to be there for me and are referring to me as family and stuff. They didn't have the passes, so they couldn't get in, and I made it very clear to them that I would only be ready to speak to them after everything was over. So once the graduation ceremony was done with and everything got wrapped up a couple of hours later, my grandparents and I finally agreed to meet my parents. All of us met at a nearby hotel so that we could grab lunch, and I told my parents right in the beginning that I did not want them discussing anything that would lead to any sort of confrontation or drama because I was in a really good mood and I did not want them to ruin it. But of course, they had to go ahead and bring it up. As soon as we were seated, they started apologizing profusely and told us that they were really sorry for how they had treated me. And even Jackie was very apologetic, but she hadn't been able to come along because she had an interview today since she had started applying to places after the confrontation with her grandparents, which had really made her realize how lazy she had been and how she had been taking everything for granted. My parents also acknowledged the fact that they had messed up really badly with me and I had been right about everything, that they really had been terrible parents to both of us. But now they want a chance to fix that, and so they had come by to talk to me and my grandparents so we could hear them out and give them a chance again. But before the grandparents could say anything, I told them that I appreciated the fact that they were feeling so apologetic, but I did not buy it because it seemed very insincere and disingenuous given the circumstances. The fact that it took my grandparents cutting off their funds to make them realize that they had been wrong was not something that I was happy about, and if they were really, really sorry, I would hope that they would wait for me to forgive them. I wasn't ready to give them a chance to come back into my life again right now. As of now, I just want to get a job, work, and build my own life separately from them. They had caused me a lot of stress and emotional pain in the past, and right now I just wanted some space away from them. I thought that I was being reasonable enough, and even my grandparents agreed. But my parents did not feel the same way. They started whining about how they had really changed their mind about how they had been treating me and did not think that it was fine anymore. So as their child, it was my duty to forgive my parents because they had always forgiven me whenever I messed up as a kid. I thought that example was laughable because it was so bizarre that they were comparing my mistakes from when I was a literal child to the mistakes that they have consciously made and refused to acknowledge as adults with kids. I told them that the bottom line was that they had messed up, and I was not ready to forgive them yet. So if they were really sorry, they would give me my space, and if they refused to do so, then I would know that they were only doing this because they wanted to be on my grandparents' side and were doing all of this for the money. I was pretty blunt with them, and they knew that they couldn't manipulate their way out of this. So my mom started with the waterworks, hoping that maybe this would get me to be a little softer towards them. But I had dealt with this kind of melodrama for years, and it was ineffective against me now. I just told her to cut it out since we were in a public space, and I told her that if she started making me uncomfortable, I would just leave along with my grandparents. So she continued to cry for a couple of minutes, accusing me of being heartless and telling me that her tears were real. But I did not buy it at all, and eventually I started to get up and leave, and that's when she stopped and requested me not to. Eventually, I guess my parents realized that there was no way that they could talk their way out of this one. And by then, the food had arrived, so they had a relatively quiet lunch and then left after congratulating me without any real happiness in their voice. But it's fine. I don't really care about that because I have my grandparents by my side, and that's all that matters. I also feel really relieved that I got to speak to my parents today because I guess I got some kind of closure that I really needed, and I was also very proud of myself because I stood up to them, and I did not allow myself to get manipulated like I usually do when it comes to my parents. So I would say that overall, it definitely was a pretty good day. Update 3. Hey, so it's been a couple of days since I met my parents for lunch after the graduation ceremony, and I told them that I wanted to stay no contact. And now Jackie has started posting against me on social media. I find it really weird that she is the one who is so angry when she wasn't even there at lunch the other day. Her involvement in my life has always been very minimal because we don't get along, so I don't understand why she feels entitled to say whatever she wants about me on a public platform and get away with it. Yesterday in the afternoon, she made some posts about how I was an ungrateful brat and that she was ashamed of being related to me and stuff. I had only blocked their phone numbers. I had forgotten to block them on social media so I could still see the posts and stuff. She had cursed me out for how I had treated our parents, and it basically ended the statement by saying that if anybody who knew her bothered to speak to me or keep in touch with me after this, she would be cutting them out of her life. I found that post totally bizarre because so far I think my parents have always done the bare minimum for me, but for her, they've gone above and beyond. So I can understand why she treats them like they are infallible or something, but I'm sorry, I can't treat them like they are the best parents in the world because to me they haven't even been good parents. And I commented on her post, explained my side of the situation, but she deleted that comment. So I was forced to make my own post, and right now we are in a social media war. She's been accusing me of being ungrateful to our parents in spite of everything that they have done for me, and I'm just trying to tell my side of the story, which is the truth. Pretty much everything about the recent fight and the situation with my grandparents has been posted by her, but in a way that makes her and our parents look like the victims. I've been trying to clear things up, and everybody who knows us is very confused about whose side they should be on. I hate the fact that all of this is coming out in public, but I don't have another choice since we have a ton of friends in common since we went to the same high school and are pretty close in age, and rather than reply to everybody personally, I think it would be better for me to just put it all out in public. It's really annoying and kind of embarrassing that this is happening, but I have to deal with it, so that's what I'm doing. Update 4. Hi, so a lot of new information has come to light recently, and I think it's safe to say that I don't think I'll ever be forgiving my parents anytime soon, let alone going no contact for a couple of months. I think I'll be in no contact with them for the rest of my life because of how unfair everything has been for me. It's been 3 days since Jackie made the post, and we have been fighting non-stop. It's been tiring, but I had decided that I was not going to stop until she did. And I'm very, very glad that I did because the fight got to a point where she made a post to defend our parents, saying that they had done the exact same things for her as they had done for me, which was a total lie. So she was not more privileged than me at all, like I was pretending, and said that I was playing the victim because I wanted my grandparents to sympathize with me instead of her, even though she had been through a lot of trauma in the past. She brought up how she had also had to take out a student loan for college, and she would have been able to make the most of that opportunity too, had it not been for her awful friends who had dumped her after using her for a couple of months in their band and giving her false hopes. She claimed that she had never been able to get over that, and that's why she had been finding it so difficult to get back to normal life and give up on those dreams. And that's when one of her old bandmates decided to call her out and clarify that the rest of the band had always told her that she was only substituting because the girl that used to sing with them before they started college had moved away to Australia. So they had never told her that they planned on staying with her forever. Even when they had made the decision to drop out of college so they could all pursue music full-time instead and go back, they had advised and even tried to talk Jackie out of it because firstly, she wasn't even that good, and secondly, she had always just been a substitute, and they wanted somebody better and more serious about music to fill in. So when they found their current vocalist, it had been a very easy decision for them to drop Jackie, And I don't think they had any reason to feel guilty about it either because they had always been very clear about what they wanted, and Jackie was the one who had refused to listen to them or take them seriously. So dropping out of college had been Jackie's own decision, and it was a bad one, which is probably why she had twisted the story and left out so many important facts to make it seem like she was the victim. And the biggest lie of them all. She and my parents always said that she had taken out a student loan to pay for college. But the same bandmate who had called her out on this also mentioned that whatever she had said about taking out a student loan was also a total lie because she had literally constantly bragged about how her parents were paying her way through college for her while they had to work part-time and hope for some well-paying gigs so they could start paying off their debts. After her bandmate called her out, Jackie obviously went back and deleted all her posts and pretended like the whole thing never even happened. But I know the truth now, and I'm never going to be speaking to my family again. They have lied over and over again, and I'm done with it. My grandparents are also going to be doing the same thing and cutting my parents and Jackie out of their lives completely. I'm hurt and I'm furious, but this is exactly what I would expect from my parents, and I'm glad that I found out the truth now so I don't waste any time on them in the future. I'm quite content with my life as it is, and from now on, my grandparents are the only family that I need. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Parents fixed their marriage after years of fighting by kicking me out. 6 months later, they want me back home because they need my signature to get my grandparents' money. Growing up, my parents' marriage was nothing short of a nightmare. They were incompatible right from the start and would clash frequently. Imagine those volatile high school relationships where couples are constantly breaking up and getting back together. But my parents, instead of being able to walk away, were stuck in the same house, bound by marriage. They couldn't escape each other, and neither could I. From the moment I came into the world, I was plunged into an environment where screaming, shouting, and physical altercations were the norm. Their arguments would often start over something trivial, maybe a minor disagreement or a small misunderstanding, but the tension would escalate quickly into a full-blown war. It wasn't uncommon for these fights to become physical, with them hitting each other or throwing objects across the room. The sound of glass shattering or a heavy object slamming against the wall became as familiar to me as the loud sound of the TV playing in the background. As a young child, I could never understand why my parents were always so angry with each other. All I knew was that their fights terrified me. Whenever they started yelling, my instinct was to cry. It was the only way I knew how to express the fear and confusion that their anger caused. But my cries for comfort or for them to stop were only met with more anger. They would turn their rage on me, shouting at me to be quiet, to stop crying. As a result, I quickly learned that my emotions were not safe to express, that even my fear and sadness were unwelcome in my own home. Hence, I stopped feeling safe around my own parents. The two people who were supposed to protect me and make me feel secure were the very ones who made me feel the most vulnerable and afraid. I couldn't trust them to keep me safe because they couldn't even keep themselves from hurting each other. As I grew older, I developed coping mechanisms to shield myself from the chaos. Whenever the fights began, I would retreat to the nearest safe space I could find, usually my bedroom or a bathroom, any place where I could lock the door and put some distance between myself and their fury. In those small, enclosed spaces, I would try to drown out the sound of their fighting, sometimes covering my ears or burying my head under a pillow. Fortunately, things began to change when my maternal grandparents stepped in. They had been quietly observing the destructive pattern of my parents' relationship for years, and I think they finally reached a breaking point. Realizing how deeply my parents' constant fighting was affecting me, they decided to take action. My grandparents, along with other concerned family members, organized an intervention, a moment where everyone came together to confront the situation head-on. During this intervention, my parents were given an ultimatum. Either they seek professional help through marriage counseling, or they separate. For the first time, it felt like someone was truly seeing the damage their relationship was causing, not just to themselves but to me as well. The intervention wasn't just about saving their marriage. It was also about saving me from the ongoing emotional turmoil. My family made it clear that the toxic environment was taking a severe toll on my mental health, and something had to change. Reluctantly at first, but eventually with some hesitation, my parents agreed to start marriage counseling. The process was slow and often painful for them, but over time we could see that it was making a difference. The intense, explosive fights between my parents became less frequent, and when disagreements did arise, they were more controlled, more focused on communicating rather than attacking each other. It was as if they were slowly learning a new language, one of understanding and respect instead of anger and blame. Gradually, our home became a quieter place, not filled with the constant tension and fear that had been the norm for so long. However, as their relationship began to improve, I started noticing something that left me feeling confused and a little hurt. My parents seemed to be pulling away from me. Before, even amidst their chaos, there had been some semblance of involvement in my daily life. My mom used to make breakfast for me, and my dad would drop me off at school, small gestures that showed they were still taking care of me in their own way. But as they focused more on repairing their marriage, these gestures began to disappear. Suddenly, my mom stopped waking up early and making me breakfast. My dad no longer insisted on driving me to school and would make excuses that he was too busy. Instead, they would hand me some money and tell me to take the bus or buy lunch if I needed it. It was a strange and unsettling experience. On one hand, I was relieved that the fighting had lessened and that our home was no longer a battleground. But on the other hand, I felt a new kind of loneliness. I understood that they were going through a lot, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being left behind, that in their attempt to fix what was broken between them, they had somehow forgotten about me. As time went on, my parents' focus on their relationship continued to grow, but it seemed to come at the expense of their relationship with me. They started going out more often, just the two of them, leaving me behind. They would head out for dinners or date nights, something they had never done before, and I was left at home, told to eat whatever leftovers I could find in the fridge. They also stopped asking me about my grades or showing any interest in how I was doing at school. I remember the few times I would excitedly share some good news about a grade I had worked hard for, hoping to get a smile or a word of praise. Instead, they would respond with indifference, barely acknowledging what I had said before turning back to their own conversation. When my 15th birthday was approaching, I wanted to have a celebration with my close friends. Up until that year, I had never been allowed to celebrate my birthday, and I had always just accepted it, never really pushing back. But this time, I was determined to have a party, to feel like a normal teenager for once. I worked up the courage to ask my parents if I could finally have a birthday party. My dad flatly refused, and my mom dismissed the idea completely, telling me that I needed to stop finding ways to waste more of their money. Her words cut deep, making me feel like I was a burden, like I didn't deserve to ask for anything. She continued to say how instead of asking for more things, I should find ways to repay them back for all the money that they had spent on me over the years. Normally, I would have let it go, swallowed my disappointment, and retreated into myself like I had so many times before. But something in me snapped. I was sad, frustrated, and filled with a kind of anger I hadn't felt before. Maybe it was my teenage hormones, or maybe it was the accumulation of years of feeling neglected, but I couldn't hold back anymore. I yelled at them, telling them that they had never really done anything for me apart from giving birth, and that they had never made me feel loved or cared for. I told them how it wasn't my responsibility to give them back anything and asked them why they even had me in the first place if they resented me so much. Hearing my outburst, my mother, who had never laid a hand on me before, slapped me hard across the face. The sting of her hand on my cheek was sharp and shocking, but her words were even more painful. She told me that I had no right to speak to them like that I should be grateful just to be alive, and that I was lucky they had done as much as they had for me. I could feel my tears welling up. I turned to my dad, hoping he would step in, hoping he would defend me or at least comfort me. But he only shook his head, disappointment etched across his face. He told me that I was getting older now and that it was time for me to grow up and learn to behave properly. He said I shouldn't be fighting with them over something as trivial as a birthday party, and that I was acting like an immature child. Their words crushed me. It was clear to me then that in their eyes, my feelings, my desires didn't matter. That night, I cried myself to sleep, feeling more alone than I ever had before. In the days following my outburst, the atmosphere at home grew even more tense. My mother never apologized for slapping me, and there was no acknowledgement of the pain or hurt I had expressed. It was as if that night had never happened. My parents now seemed to go out of their way to avoid any interaction at all. They wouldn't speak to me unless absolutely necessary, and even then, their words were curt and cold. A week later, my dad called me into the living room. The moment I walked in, I knew something was wrong. Both he and my mom were sitting there, looking grim and serious. My heart sank as I prepared myself for another round of scolding. I could feel the anxiety building up inside me as I took a seat, wondering what I had done this time. I couldn't even meet their eyes, dreading whatever was coming next. Before I could say anything, my dad started to speak. His tone was measured, but there was an edge to it that made me nervous. He said that they had been thinking a lot since our last conversation and that both he and my mom felt that their marriage was almost perfect now. He told me how they both had worked really hard to reach a place where they were finally happy together. But then he paused, and what he said next shook me to my core. He continued, saying that there was still one major issue standing in the way of their happiness, one big failure that they needed to address in order to truly move forward towards a happy marriage. My dad then looked me in the eyes and said, I was the failure in their life. I sat there, frozen, trying to comprehend what he was saying. He said it so simply, so matter-of-factly, that it almost didn't register at first. He continued to say that they believed their marriage could be absolutely perfect if not for the burden of raising me. As I sat there, my heart pounding in my chest, my mother jumped in, her voice sharp and laced with bitterness. She said that having me around the house was a constant reminder of how much they disliked me and that I was the reason they had almost gotten divorced. My dad explained that they had me when they were young and didn't really have a choice in the matter. Over the years, they had grown to detest the role of being parents, but neither of them had been able to admit it to the other. This unspoken resentment, he said, was the root of many of their fights. He went on to tell me that after they started going to counseling, both of them quickly realized that they shared the same feelings of dislike toward me, their own child. They had then tried to salvage their marriage by emotionally distancing themselves from me, but apparently that wasn't enough. My recent rebellious behavior had been the final straw for them. It had made them realize just how much of an inconvenience I was in their lives. They wanted to start fresh, to live their lives without being reminded of what they now saw as the biggest regret of their relationship. I sat there, paralyzed by the weight of their words, as if time had slowed down and everything around me had lost its meaning. The people who had raised me, who had always been the center of my world, had just torn apart everything I thought I understood about love, family, and belonging. As if this wasn't enough, my mother then went on to announce that they wanted me to move in with my grandparents soon. She continued almost nonchalantly, saying that if my grandparents didn't want to take me in, just in case, then I would have to figure something out on my own, whether that meant living with a friend or fending for myself. She didn't seem to care. The way she said it, so detached and indifferent, made it clear that she and my father were done with me. They had already moved on in their minds, erasing me from their lives as if I had never existed. I looked at them, searching for any sign of remorse, any hint that they might change their minds, but all I saw were cold, resolute expressions. There was no love in their eyes, no compassion, nothing that even remotely resembled the parents I had desperately longed for all these years. I was devastated, shattered by the realization that the people who brought me into this world, who were supposed to love and protect me, had decided that I was disposable. That evening, I sat reeling in my room. After this entire conversation, I still couldn't believe that they had asked me, still a minor, to leave the house. They expected me to fend for myself, to find my own way, because they were done with me, done with the responsibilities of parenthood, done with the failure they claimed had ruined their marriage. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I was overwhelmed with disbelief and pain, struggling to process the fact that my own parents were abandoning me, casting me aside as if I were nothing. When my mother informed her parents of their decision to kick me out, my grandparents immediately came to my rescue. The moment they arrived, I could see the fury in my grandmother's eyes. She was livid, practically shaking with anger at what my parents were doing to me. Her voice, usually so gentle, was sharp and fierce as she confronted my mother, demanding to know how she could do something so heartless. My dad tried to justify their actions, arguing that they never wanted me in the first place and only kept me because of my grandparents' insistence. He told them that since they cared so much about me, it was now their responsibility to take me in. The way he spoke about me, as though I were just an obligation they had been forced to endure, cut through me like a knife. But my grandparents didn't back down. My grandfather, calm but firm, turned to me and told me to pack my clothes and gather all my important documents. I was in a daze as I stumbled back to my room, tears streaming down my face as I hastily shoved my belongings into a bag. My hands trembling, I couldn't stop crying. The thought of leaving the only home I had ever known was tearing me apart. I knew I was lucky to have my grandparents there to take me in, but it didn't lessen the pain of being rejected by my own parents. With every item I packed, I prayed that my parents would change their minds, that they would come to their senses and realize what they were doing. I wanted so desperately for them to stop me, to tell me that they had made a mistake, that they loved me and wanted me to stay. But no such words came. When I finally walked out, my grandparents were there, ready to help me carry my things. I glanced back at my parents, hoping for some sign of regret or hesitation, but they didn't even look up. They sat at the kitchen table, holding each other's hands, ignoring me. The sight of them sitting there, united in their vision, broke what little was left of my heart. It was at that moment that I realized that my parents only cared about each other and that they had chosen to hold on to their relationship at the expense of their own child. Those first few weeks after I moved into my grandparents' house were some of the darkest days of my life. Every night, I was haunted by nightmares about my parents, terrifying dreams that left me waking up in the middle of the night drenched in sweat, tears streaming down my face. I would lie there shivering in the darkness, unable to shake the overwhelming sadness that came from being abandoned by my own parents. I also started falling ill frequently, my body reflecting the trauma I was going through. My grandfather, worried about my health, took me to see a doctor. After a few examinations, the doctor gently explained that the stress I was under was taking a serious toll on my mental health. The weight of my emotions was manifesting in physical ways, breaking me down little by little. I could feel myself slipping further into a pit of despair. I stopped taking care of myself, eating irregularly and losing interest in everything that had once mattered to me. My grades at school began to plummet. I missed my parents so much it hurt. I kept hoping, wishing that they would call me, that they would realize they had made a mistake and take me back. But the phone never rang. In moments of desperation, I would try to call them myself, clinging to the hope that hearing my voice might remind them that I still existed, that I was still their child. But each time, they ignored my calls, letting them go unanswered. I would send my mother texts, pouring my heart out, begging her to come and take me back home. But all she would do was leave me on read, her silence a cruel reminder of how little I now meant to her. The weeks dragged on, each one heavier than the last. I was living in misery, my heart breaking a little more each day as I grappled with the reality that my parents had truly left me on my own. Then one day, as my grandmother was combing my hair, something she did to comfort me, to try and bring some normalcy back into my life, she suddenly broke down in tears. She cried openly, her hands trembling as she held the brush. Through her sobs, she told me how much she wished I didn't have to go through this, how she and my grandfather just wanted to see me happy again. Watching my grandmother cry, I felt a pang of guilt and a wave of realization wash over me. Here was someone who loved me deeply, who was hurting just as much as I was, if not more, because she couldn't take my pain away. At that moment, I understood that I couldn't keep letting myself fall apart. My parents weren't coming back. They had made their choice and moved on. As much as it broke my heart to accept it, I knew I had to make peace with that truth. I realized that I needed to start picking up the pieces of my life, not just for myself, but for my grandparents too. They had taken me in when I had nowhere else to go, and they were doing everything they could to help me heal. They deserved to see me try, to see me fight, to rebuild my life. From that day forward, I resolved to take it one step at a time. It wasn't easy. There were still days when the sadness felt overwhelming, when I missed my parents so much it felt like I couldn't breathe. But I knew I had to keep moving forward, for my sake and for the sake of the people who still cared about me. My grandparents had become my lifeline, and I owed it to them and to myself to try to find a way back to happiness. Over the months, I slowly began to shift my focus from the overwhelming sadness of losing my parents to the small positive things that were starting to happen in my life. For example, my grandmother makes me breakfast every morning. She has this adorable habit of spreading ketchup on my toast in the shape of a smiley face. It is such a simple gesture, but it makes me feel cared for in a way I have never felt before. My grandfather is a stickler for neatness and believes that a crumpled shirt is a poor reflection of one's character. Hence, every morning he irons my clothes for school with such precision that I look sharp and put together when I leave for school. Living with my grandparents has also brought new freedoms that I had never experienced before. For the first time, I am allowed to participate in after-school activities. This is something my parents had never permitted, but now I have joined clubs and sports teams and made new friends. Weekends have become something I look forward to as well. My grandparents always encouraged me to hang out with my friends, something that had always been limited before. I am finally able to go out, have fun, and just be a teenager without the constant feeling of being judged. As time has gone on, I have found myself thinking less and less about my parents. The pain is still there, of course, but it doesn't consume me like it used to. My grandparents have successfully created an environment where I feel safe, valued, and loved. Slowly but surely, their home has become my home. It's been 6 months now since I moved out of my parents' place. Other relatives from both my mother's and father's sides have continued to visit me regularly. Word quickly spread through the family about what my parents had done, and the shock and anger were almost universal. One by one, everyone has cut off contact with my parents after confronting them about their decision to abandon me. Sometimes I do hear bits and pieces about my parents' lives from some of my cousins. Apparently, my absence has brought them closer together. They even went on a cruise recently, enjoying the newfound peace in their marriage. Hearing that stung, but I tried to push the thoughts away. I hadn't reached out to them in months, determined to move on and focus on the life I was rebuilding with my grandparents. Then yesterday, something happened that I never expected. My phone rang, and when I glanced at the screen, I felt my heart stop. It was a call from my mom. For a moment, I thought I was dreaming, a cruel trick of my mind. But no matter how many times I rubbed my eyes, the phone kept ringing. My hand trembled as I picked it up, my heart pounding in my chest. When I finally answered, the first thing I noticed was the sound of her breathing on the other end. It was shaky and uncertain. After what felt like an eternity of awkward silence, she spoke. Her voice was softer than I remembered, almost hesitant, as she asked how I had been doing. The question hung in the air, and I found myself unable to respond. What could I possibly say to her? That I was fine? That I was broken? That I had missed them every day and yet resented them for what they had done? I kept quiet, unsure of what to say. Then she spoke again, asking if I was free to talk because she had something important to discuss with me. Her words were careful, almost rehearsed, and it made me wonder what could possibly be so important now, after all this time. Why now, after months of silence, after they had seemingly moved on with their lives? There was so much left unsaid between us, so much hurt that had festered in the months since they kicked me out. I wasn't sure if I was ready to hear what she had to say, but I also had a faint, painful hope that maybe, just maybe, she was reaching out to make amends. I asked her what it was that she wanted, trying to keep my voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions surging inside me. There was a pause on the other end, and I could almost hear her gathering the courage to speak. Then my mom took a deep breath and asked me if I could come back home. The words I had longed to hear for so many painful months were finally being spoken, but instead of relief, all I felt was a strange, hollow sensation. She continued, saying that she and Dad regretted kicking me out and had spent time thinking things over. They wanted to make amends and have me back home, but something about her words didn't sit right with me. She didn't once actually apologize to me for everything she and Dad had put me through. Her words were rehearsed, like she was reading from a script. There was no emotion behind them, no real sense of remorse that I could feel. I told her that I didn't believe her and that it sounded like she was lying. I pointed out that if she and Dad truly regretted their actions, they wouldn't have waited 6 months to reach out. They could have easily come to my grandparents' house, knocked on the door, and asked for my forgiveness. But instead, they had been silent for half a year, living their lives without me, going on vacations and apparently growing closer. Now, out of the blue, she was calling me, acting like everything could be fixed with a few words, as if the damage they had done could be so easily undone. I told her to stop playing with my heart, that I didn't need them anymore. They had made their choice when they kicked me out, and I had spent the last 6 months trying to rebuild my life without them. I wasn't about to let them waltz back in and pretend like nothing had happened. With that, I cut off the call. I still have no idea what to think about this. Am I wrong for not believing my mother and moving back home after she and Dad kicked me out? Date 1. Thank you to everyone who has shown me support and reached out during this time. Since my last conversation with my mom, she has called me 3 more times, but I haven't answered any of them. My dad also sent me a message apologizing for everything and expressing how much he misses me, but it all feels too good to be true. I'm relieved that others also find my parents' behavior strange, which is why I've told my grandparents about my mom's sudden call. My grandmother is now trying to find out from other relatives if they know anything about why my parents are pushing me to move back. Update 2. Turns out we were all right because the truth has finally come out. One of my relatives on my dad's side just confirmed that my paternal grandparents have drawn up a new will. My dad, being their only child, is supposed to inherit everything. However, in their new will, they've added a condition. For my dad to access the inheritance, they need my signature as well, and the money has to be equally divided between me and him. If I don't sign the papers, the entire inheritance will be donated to charity. My paternal grandparents have stayed in touch with me and, like everyone else, know how my parents abandoned me. I'm sure this is their way of trying to bring my parents and me back together. However, it's now clear that my parents only reached out to me because they're afraid of losing this inheritance if they don't continue to have a good relationship with me. It's clear they want me to move back in so that if and when my paternal grandparents pass away, I won't resist signing for the inheritance. Update 3. My maternal grandparents have since talked to my parents and warned them that we now understand their true motive for reaching out to me. My mom tried to backtrack, claiming it wasn't just about my paternal grandparents' will and that I would also benefit from the inheritance, so I should consider my future. But my grandmother wasn't swayed by her arguments. She responded by telling my mother that she was no longer considered her daughter and expressed shame over how inhumane she had become. In the wake of that confrontation, I've decided to block my parents. I will continue to live with my grandparents as I have for the past few months. I'm learning to accept that while my relationship with my parents may never be repaired, I have the chance to build something positive from the experience. It's definitely not the life I imagined, but it's one where I'm finally surrounded by people who genuinely care about me and want the best for me. For now, that's enough. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Absent father suddenly reappeared after 35 years, left me his entire fortune instead of his wife and kids. I'm a 35-year-old woman who grew up without a father. My mom raised me on her own after my dad left when I was just a baby. I never knew him growing up, and to be honest, I didn't think much about him. My mom did an amazing job as a single parent, and I had a happy childhood despite his absence. Fast forward to about 5 years ago. Out of the blue, I got a message on social media from a man claiming to be my father. At first, I thought it was some kind of scam or mistake, but after some back and forth and verification, I realized it really was him. He said he had been looking for me for years and wanted to reconnect. I was hesitant at first. This man had been absent for my entire life, and now he suddenly wanted to be part of it. But curiosity got the better of me, and I agreed to meet him for coffee. That first meeting was awkward, to say the least. He tried to explain why he left, saying he was young and scared and made a huge mistake. He told me he had another family now, a wife and 2 kids, my half-siblings, but he said he always regretted leaving me and my mom, and he wanted to make amends. Over the next few months, we started building a tentative relationship. We'd meet for coffee or lunch every few weeks and talk. He told me about his life, and I shared bits and pieces about mine. It was strange getting to know this man who was biologically my father but felt like a stranger. During one of our meetings, he mentioned that he had a successful business and had done well for himself financially. He hinted that he wanted to make things right with me, whatever that meant. I told him I didn't want or need his money. I just wanted to get to know him. Things were going okay for a while, but then I started noticing some red flags. Whenever I'd ask about meeting his wife and kids, he'd get evasive and change the subject. He always insisted on meeting in public places, never at his home. And sometimes he'd make comments comparing me to my half-siblings that made me uncomfortable. For example, he once said, "You're so driven and hardworking, not like my other kids. They've had everything handed to them and don't appreciate it." Another time, he remarked, "You look just like me, much more than my other children do." It started to feel like he was trying to relive some idealized version of fatherhood with me while keeping me separate from his real family. I started pulling back, and our meetings became less frequent. The last time I saw him was about 6 months ago. He showed up looking stressed and agitated. He told me he had been diagnosed with terminal cancer and only had a few months left. I was shocked and didn't know how to react. Here was this man I barely knew who was technically my father, telling me he was dying. He said he wanted to make sure I was taken care of and mentioned updating his will. I told him again that I didn't want his money and that he should focus on his wife and kids. He got upset and said they didn't need it and he wanted to do something for me. I left that meeting feeling very unsettled. After that, I didn't hear from him again. I figured he was spending his remaining time with his family. Then, last week, I got a call from a lawyer saying my father had passed away. I felt a confusing mix of emotions. But then the lawyer said that my father had left his entire estate to me in his will. His house, his business, his savings, everything. And he had left nothing to his wife and other children. I was stunned. This was the last thing I expected or wanted. The lawyer explained that the will was ironclad and had been updated just weeks before my father's death. He also said there was a sealed letter for me that my father had left with the will. Before I could even process this information, my phone started blowing up with messages and calls from numbers I didn't even recognize. It turned out to be my father's wife and my half-siblings. Somehow, they had gotten my contact info and were furious about the will. My half-sister, who's about 25, sent me a long message accusing me of manipulating our father in his final days. She said I had no right to swoop in at the last minute and steal their inheritance. My half-brother, who's 28, left me a voicemail full of threats and expletives, saying they would fight this in court. Their mother, my father's wife, tried a different approach. She sent me a tearful message talking about how devastated they all were, how they were struggling financially, and how they just wanted what my father would have wanted. She begged me to do the right thing and share the inheritance. I was overwhelmed and didn't respond to any of them. I needed time to think and process everything that was happening. I decided to read the letter my father had left before making any decisions. What I found in that letter changed everything. My father explained that he had always regretted leaving me and my mother. He said that in his final months, he had tried to make amends and get to know me. But he also revealed some painful truths about his other family. The letter contained even more shocking news. My father wrote that he had discovered, through a DNA test he'd taken out of curiosity, that neither of his other children were biologically his. He had confronted his wife about this, and she had admitted to having multiple affairs throughout their marriage. He detailed how his wife had manipulated him for years, using his non-biological children as leverage to keep him in line because he was the one who had signed their birth certificates, and legally he was the actual father for her kids. She had also apparently been involved with several of his business associates, and there was a possibility that one of them could be the biological father of both children. This discovery had devastated him and made him rethink his entire life. He realized that the family he had chosen over me wasn't even truly his. In his pain and anger, he had decided to leave everything to me, his only biological child. He wrote that his wife had known about me all along and had pressured him to stay away. She had threatened to leave him and take everything he had in court if he ever tried to contact me. My half-siblings had grown up knowing they had an older half-sister but had been told I wanted nothing to do with them. My father admitted that he had been weak and allowed this to happen. He said that getting to know me in his final months made him realize what he had missed out on. He felt I deserved to be compensated for a lifetime without a father. He also added that his other children had grown up spoiled and entitled. They had squandered opportunities and money he had given them over the years. He worried that leaving them his fortune would only enable more of the same behavior. The letter ended with him asking my forgiveness and saying that this inheritance was his way of trying to make things right. He hoped I would use it to build a good life for myself and maybe even help others. After reading the letter, I just felt sad that while I did not know my father, the time I have spent with him showed that he was actually a good man with a good heart. I decided not to respond to any of my father's family's messages. Instead, I had my lawyer send them a formal letter explaining that I had no intention of contesting the will or sharing the inheritance. I did not mention the contents of my father's letter to me. This set off another round of drama. My half-siblings started a social media campaign, painting me as a gold-digging homewrecker who had seduced their poor dying father. They posted old family photos and talked about what a wonderful dad he had been, conveniently leaving out my existence. Some of their friends and extended family members started harassing me online. I got messages calling me horrible names and saying I was tearing a grieving family apart. A few even made vague threats about what would happen if I didn't give back the money. My father's wife tried a new tactic. She showed up at my workplace one day, crying and causing a scene. She talked about how they were going to lose their home and how my father would never have wanted this. My coworkers were confused and uncomfortable, and I had to ask security to escort her out. Through all of this, I've stayed quiet. I haven't engaged with their accusations or tried to defend myself publicly. But it's been hard. There are moments when I've been tempted to share my father's letter and expose all their lies, but I know that would only lead to more drama and pain for everyone involved. I did reach out to my mom to tell her what was happening. She was shocked but supportive. She told me that my father had tried to come back when I was about 5 years old, saying he had made a mistake. But when she found out he was married with another kid, she told him to stay away. I guess that explains why he said he had been looking for me for years. As for the inheritance itself, I'm still figuring out what to do. The business my father left me is quite successful, but I know nothing about running it. I'm considering selling it and using the money to set up a scholarship fund for kids from single-parent homes. That feels like a way to honor both my mom's hard work in raising me and my father's final wishes. The house is another issue. It's in another state and much bigger and fancier than anything I'd ever want for myself. I'm thinking about selling it and donating a portion of the proceeds to a charity that supports families affected by cancer, in memory of my father. My half-siblings are still threatening legal action, but my lawyer assures me they don't have a case. The will is solid, and there's no evidence of any undue influence on my part. Still, I'm bracing myself for a long and ugly court battle if they decide to go through with it. I know I didn't do anything wrong here. I never asked for this money or tried to influence my father's decision. But I still feel conflicted about keeping it all when I know his other family is struggling. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for refusing to share the inheritance with them, given everything that's happened? Update 1. Hey Reddit, it's been about 6 months since I last posted, and things have been a bit complicated. I'm still trying to wrap my head around everything that's happened since I inherited my father's estate. When I first got the news, I was in complete shock. But now that the dust has settled, well, sort of, I'm realizing just how complicated and stressful this whole situation has become. After my father's passing, I inherited not just his house and savings, but also his business. I had no idea how to run a business, let alone one as large and successful as his. My father's company was well established with a lot of moving parts. Employees, contracts, clients, the works. I tried to step in and learn as much as I could, but it's been incredibly overwhelming. I've been getting harassed nonstop by my half-siblings and their mother. They've made it their mission to make my life a living hell. They're constantly sending nasty messages, spreading lies about me on social media, and even showing up at my workplace to cause scenes. The stress of dealing with them, combined with trying to manage a business I never wanted, has been taking a serious toll on my mental health. I've been seriously considering selling the business. It's not something I ever wanted or asked for, and I feel like it's more of a burden than anything else. But at the same time, I can't help but feel a sense of responsibility to the employees who rely on it for their livelihoods. I've been discussing my options with my lawyer, but it's a tough decision. As I mentioned in my last post, my half-siblings and their mother have been furious about my father leaving everything to me. Well, things have escalated. They've officially filed a lawsuit to contest the will, claiming that I manipulated my father in his final days and took advantage of his illness to get him to change his will. They're accusing me of elder abuse, saying that I isolated him from them and pressured him into leaving everything to me. Their claims are completely baseless, but it's still terrifying to be accused of something like that. My lawyer has been great, though. She's advised me to consider filing a countersuit for defamation, given all the lies they've been spreading about me. I'm not someone who likes to get involved in legal battles, but at this point, I feel like I don't have a choice. When we finally had our first day in court, it was a complete mess. Their lawyer presented a bunch of so-called evidence that was supposed to prove I manipulated my father. It was mostly just out-of-context messages and twisted interpretations of our conversations. I sat there feeling like I was in some kind of nightmare, watching as they tried to paint me as this evil, money-hungry person. But then my lawyer presented the letter my father had left for me, the one where he explained why he had left everything to me and revealed the truth about my half-sibling's paternity. The courtroom went silent as she read out loud the part where my father explained how he discovered that neither of his other children were biologically his and how his wife had manipulated him for years. It was like a scene out of a movie. The judge looked stunned. My father's wife, who had been sitting there with a smug look on her face, suddenly broke down in tears. She was called to the stand and, under pressure, she admitted to having multiple affairs throughout their marriage. She even admitted that she had known about me all along and had pressured my father to stay away from me. My half-siblings were in complete shock. They stormed out of the courtroom, refusing to continue with the case. The judge dismissed their claims, ruling in my favor and stating that the will was valid and that there was no evidence of any undue influence or manipulation on my part. The case was officially closed. But the aftermath was anything but. After the trial, things got even more complicated. My half-siblings completely cut off contact with their mother. I heard that they were devastated by the news and felt betrayed by the woman they had always thought of as their mother. They've been blaming her for everything that happened, and it seems like their relationship has been irreparably damaged. But that's not where the drama ended. I started receiving anonymous threats, both online and in the mail. People were telling me that I had destroyed a family and that I would pay for what I'd done. It was terrifying, and I didn't feel safe in my own home. I ended up setting up security cameras to protect myself. As for the house and business, I've decided it's time to let them go. The house is in another state and is far too big for me. I've never felt any emotional attachment to it. I've made arrangements to sell it, and I'm planning to donate a portion of the proceeds to a charity that supports families affected by cancer, in memory of my father. The business was a harder decision, but I knew I couldn't keep running it. I just don't have the knowledge or the passion for it, and it was causing me so much stress. That's when something unexpected happened. After the trial, I was approached by one of my father's longtime business partners. He had been with my father since the early days of the company and knew everything there was to know about the business. He told me that he had been heartbroken by my father's passing and that he had been concerned about what would happen to the company. He made me an offer to buy the business from me, with the promise that he would keep all the current employees and continue to run it with the same integrity and care that my father had. I knew that selling to him would mean that the employees would be taken care of and the company would be in good hands. After some negotiations, we finalized the deal. The business was officially sold, and I was able to walk away with a clear conscience, knowing that it was in good hands. I've since invested the money from the sale, and I'm planning to use it to build a life for myself that honors both my mother's hard work and my father's final wishes. This whole experience was new to me, but I'm finally starting to feel like I can move on. I've learned a lot about myself, my family, and what it means to truly make peace with the past. Thank you to everyone who offered advice and support. It meant more than you know. Update 2. Hey everyone. It's been a year since I inherited my father's estate, and I wanted to give you all an update on how things have been going. After everything that happened with the legal battle, selling the business, and dealing with the fallout from my father's will, I've been trying to move forward and build a new life for myself. After selling the business and the house, I decided it was time for a fresh start. I moved to a new city where no one knew about my past, my father, or the drama with my half-siblings. I've been focusing on investing the money I received wisely. I've also been exploring ways to give back, just as my father had hoped I would. I've set up a scholarship fund for kids from single-parent homes in honor of my mother's hard work in raising me. It feels good to know that I'm doing something positive with the money, and I hope it will make a difference in the lives of others who are in similar situations to the one I was in growing up. Life has been quiet, and I've been enjoying the peace. But recently, something happened that I wasn't expecting. I was at a hospital for a routine checkup when I ran into my half-brother. I almost didn't recognize him at first. He looked completely different from the person I remembered from the courtroom. He was sitting in the waiting room, looking tired and worn down. When our eyes met, he seemed just as shocked to see me as I was to see him. We ended up talking, and he told me that he had been going through a really rough time. After the trial, he and his sister had cut ties with their mother and had been struggling ever since. He had been living on the streets for a while and had recently found out that he needed an expensive medical treatment that he couldn't afford. Hearing all of this stirred up a lot of conflicting emotions. On one hand, I felt for him. Despite everything that happened, he was still my half-brother, and it was hard to see him in such a dire situation. But on the other hand, I couldn't forget how he had treated me during the legal battle, the accusations, the harassment, the threats. It was all still fresh in my mind. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to help him, but I was also afraid of being manipulated again. I ended up consulting my lawyer about the situation, asking what the risks would be if I decided to help him. My lawyer advised me to be cautious but suggested that if I did want to help, I could do so anonymously through a trust. After thinking it over, I decided that I couldn't just walk away from him in his time of need. But I also knew I needed to protect myself. I ended up setting up a trust in his name, with the condition that the money could only be used for his medical expenses. This way, I could help him without opening myself up to more drama or manipulation. I had my lawyer handle the details, and to this day, my half-brother doesn't know that I'm the one who set up the trust. I hope it helps him get the treatment he needs and that he can get back on his feet. I believe I recalled everything I could remember, so I want to step away from the keyboard and live my life a bit. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Until next update, bye. Update 3. Unfortunately, things didn't go as smoothly as I'd hoped. Not long after setting up the trust, I got word that my half-brother's health had deteriorated rapidly. He needed emergency surgery. I didn't know if I should try to reach out to him or just let things be. In the end, I decided not to get directly involved. I figured that if he wanted to reconnect, he would have reached out to me by now. But I did hear through some people that he made it through the surgery, but his condition is still touch and go. I hope he pulls through, but I'm also trying to maintain some distance for my own peace of mind. This will be my final update, and I want to thank everyone who has followed my story and offered advice and support. This past year has been one of the most challenging of my life. I'm planning to continue focusing on the positive, using the inheritance to build a better life for myself and to help others in need. I've learned that sometimes the best way to move forward is to let go of the past and focus on what you can do to make a difference in the present. Thanks again, Reddit. I'm finally at peace with everything that's happened, and I'm looking forward to the future. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Daughter revealed my wife was cheating on me with her ex-landlord, so I got revenge by exposing the affair to his fiancée, winning full custody, and raising my daughter with his ex-fiancée. Before my ex-wife destroyed my life with her infidelity, we were so happy together, and I never believed a day would come where I would have to share this story. When I first met Mariah, I instantly knew she was the woman I had been looking for. I had been single for almost 2 years and was still getting over the pain of my ex-girlfriend dumping me for another woman. Trust me, this type of pain hits differently. I won't say our marriage was too different from our dating years. The only difference was moving in together and raising a daughter together. The first few months of our marriage were not as blissful as most people described. I had to do many things like cleaning, grocery shopping, doing the dishes, laundry, and even tolerating her annoying mood swings because of her pregnancy. And although I enjoyed being a father and a husband, it was very stressful. Our daughter Daisy grew up pretty fast, and in a twinkle of an eye she was 4 already. I don't believe in magic, but it felt like magic because everything happened so fast, and I couldn't even remember how she moved from crying all night to picking the color of her nail polish. Meanwhile, Mariah and I still lived happily with each other, and we were both fantastic parents to Daisy. As Daisy got older, she spent most of her time with Mariah, and I only got to spend time with her on my days off. On one of those days, I took Daisy to the park to play with our dog and do whatever she wanted. So after playing, she came back to take a pack of juice, and just beside us, 2 couples were making out and almost kissing their tongues out. I wasn't even paying attention to the couple, and my eyes were fixed on my phone screen. So when Daisy started giggling, I had to look up and see what was making her laugh. When I asked her why she was laughing, she whispered that the 2 couples looked like Mommy and her boyfriend, which made me curious. I pressed to know what she was talking about, and after explaining everything in her childish way, I knew something was not right. Everything Daisy told me insinuated that Mariah had been seeing someone else, and they made out even in Daisy's presence. Another thing was, the man Daisy described was someone I knew. He was also close to my wife and visited our house a lot. I asked Daisy multiple times if she was sure what she said, and she said I could even ask her mother myself. So to avoid blowing up my discovery, I told Daisy not to tell Mariah about our discussion, and she promised not to. Even without getting proof, I changed how I looked at Mariah, and she could tell I acted a bit cold toward her. The thing is, I could not believe that Mariah, who looked so innocent, assured me that she loved me and never did anything fishy, would cheat on me. It was difficult for me, but I struggled to hold it in and not confront her until I did what I wanted. Days after I found out Mariah was having her affair, I set up a dash cam in Mariah's car and hid it very well. I wanted to be sure of everything Daisy told me before taking action, and low-key, I hoped Daisy was just making stories up. To my greatest surprise, after Mariah drove out of the house with Daisy, the weekend, she stopped and picked up her boyfriend, and it was the same man Daisy described. He used to be her landlord before we got married and moved in together, and even though I noticed they were close, I thought they were just friends and nothing more. But to my horror, it was more than that. Immediately, he got into the car and Mariah leaned in to kiss him passionately, and when they were done, he turned to the back seat to playfully scatter Daisy's hair, and they drove off. I was so disappointed that I didn't know what to do next. I felt my whole world crash, and I struggled to believe that Mariah was the person in the car. After my minutes of emotional breakdown, it turned to rage, and an idea popped into my head. Still, when Mariah came home that evening, I didn't confront her or anything. I simply told her I was going for a walk to clear my head. Meanwhile, I was so sad and heartbroken. To avenge her for cheating on me and breaking my heart, I did some research and found the girlfriend of Mariah's boyfriend. She had met me physically several times and we barely chatted on Facebook. Without holding back, I told her everything I found out and showed her the footage of Mariah and her fiancé. She was heartbroken because she had been dating her boyfriend for 4 years and was engaged for 1 year. Yet he cheated on her. She felt so betrayed and broke off the engagement. After she did, I confronted my wife. At first, she denied having an affair with her boyfriend and called me delusional. But after she watched the footage, she was speechless. I was also brilliant and insisted on a paternity test, and the results showed Daisy was my biological daughter. She tried to beg me and explain that those were just friendly kisses and nothing more, but she must have thought I was stupid. I told her we were divorcing and I would take full custody of our daughter or expose her videos to her friends and family if she disagreed. At first, she relented, and although it was hard in court because she was a good mother, but because of all the evidence I presented to the court, I won child custody for Daisy, and she only got to see Daisy on weekends. I even thought Mariah and her boyfriend would take their relationship to the next level, especially since they had no reason to hide anymore, but they broke up shortly after their secret was exposed. Her parents eventually found out and they were so disappointed in her. It's been years now, and I know Daisy has been telling her stories of how me and my new girlfriend are taking care of her. As for my new girlfriend, We figured we were all we had after our spouses cheated on us and broke our trust. It sounds petty to date her boyfriend's former girlfriend, but it happened, and we are so happy together. We are not in a rush to get married, and I'm glad she loves and treats Daisy as her child. Now on to the next story. Story 11. Mom stole my grandmother's Christmas-themed engagement ring and gave it to my brother's fiancée. When I demanded it back, my family called me selfish. I've been receiving messages non-stop from my maternal family and my siblings, and it has me second-guessing if what I'm doing is going too far. This past Christmas, I saw on social media that my brother proposed to my future SIL, who I will call Amy. I was initially happy for them until I saw the ring, which Amy posted photos of. I immediately recognized it as my grandmother's engagement ring and phoned my mom to ask if she had given my brother the ring as a placeholder. She brushed me off, saying that no, she gave him the ring on purpose because I hate Christmas and Amy loves it. Context: I had always been closer to my paternal side of the family, especially my grandma. My grandmother passed away last year, and the only inheritance I got is her engagement ring. I was not to receive this ring until I'm 30. My grandmother loved Christmas, and it showed in her engagement ring. It's an emerald-cut diamond with tiny circle rubies and oval emeralds to look like holly. Also, I didn't always hate Christmas. 2 years back, I lost my BF of 10 years, my childhood BFF, and my sorority sister in a car accident coming home from a Christmas party that we all attended. I've been in therapy struggling with survivor's guilt, but I'm doing better now. I told my mom that the ring technically was meant to be mine and that she couldn't take it. She told me that she had a box of my grandmother's jewelry, and I could just pick something else. I was stewing for a few days before contacting my paternal uncle, who is the executor. He was furious and told me that my mom had said she was going to give me the ring as a Christmas gift. He then said he could be in touch with a lawyer if I wanted to press charges. We talked for a bit more before hanging up. Armed with this information, I texted my mom, brother, and future SIL, saying that I had been in touch with my uncle and that I would press charges if the ring was not returned to either me or my uncle. My brother tried to say he really wanted to use the ring, that since I hated Christmas, I didn't deserve it. I let them text me using their threats as future evidence. I told them they had a week to return the ring or I'd follow through with the police. Now my mother's side of the family, as well as my other siblings, are hounding me. They all think I'm blowing things up. I'm not. I know I'm not, but with how everybody is acting, I feel like I'm going crazy. Update 1. Hey y'all. Before we get into the update, there are a few points I want to make clear that have been brought up from my last post. First, my mom and paternal grandmother were on good terms before her passing. They weren't besties by any means, but they were kind to each other, hence why my mother got a box of her jewelry, which mostly consists of brooches but does offer a few of her better pieces like her locket and a bracelet. Second, my father passed of a heart condition the year I graduated middle school, which is why he's not dealing with my mom. Since his death, my paternal family has really tried to bridge the gap he left, hence why I'm so close with him now. Time for the update. The day after I posted, Amy, future SIL, texted me privately and asked me to meet up with her in secret. We organized a meeting for the next day at one of the local diners to grab lunch and talk. Meeting her was weird since I didn't know how she would gauge the situation. Amy has never been mean-spirited, just blunt. Not the rude kind of blunt either. She's just a woman of a few words kind of deal. A few of the comments said she was the asshole for accepting it, but the fact is she hasn't been in the family long enough to know about my connection to the ring. She had only met my grandmother once or twice before my grandmother got sick. Once we sat down, she told me to tell her about my grandmother, which I initially thought was weird, but I got to telling her some childhood stories about my grandmother. How I would help her pick tomatoes from her garden to make fresh sauce, how we used to go on her porch and just watch the sunset, how during Christmas Mass she always held my hand walking up/down the large steps since the crowds would often lead to me being separated. Long story short, Amy seemed reminiscent about the situation before she immediately apologized. She hadn't known about the ring, just that it was a family ring and that it meant she was one of us now. When she had seen the text, she confronted my brother, who brushed it off as just being dramatic. It's not like it's the only piece she has, which is true. I actually do have my grandmother's pearl earrings and her pearl necklace, but that was a sweet 16 gift, not inheritance. That got Amy mad, and she went to stay with her family. She apparently had been in my shoes before, having been gypped by her older relatives regarding her own grandmother's inheritance. She returned the ring and said she plans to break off the engagement. I told her to really think about that. She then smiled and said that she couldn't be a part of a family that was so backhanded and cruel. We talked for a bit more and left on good terms. My brother really dropped the ball. She was a good one. Yesterday my mom called me and told me I had gone too far, and now Amy doesn't want to be a part of the family. I asked her what she expected when Amy was a good-hearted person who probably wouldn't want to marry into a family of liars and thieves. She said my brother was distraught when he came home and found she had left with her things. I told her, maybe if they didn't try to take my ring, then maybe Amy wouldn't look at them like they were bad people, and maybe she'd want to still marry my brother. My mom called me a slew of names before hanging up. I asked my uncle that now that I have the ring, could I just keep it? My uncle said it was fine since he knew I had a safe that I could keep it in. It's a fancy fingerprint one where I keep my registered firearm and legal documents. He just made sure to document me receiving the ring so that this way he didn't go nutty trying to find it for my 30th birthday. I now wear it on my middle finger since it's a little too big for my ring finger. I went on a date with my we've been dating September 10th months, partner this morning, and they loved it. I plan to post a photo of us tonight or tomorrow. See how much I can stir the pot. Thanks to all who supported me. I knew I wasn't crazy. I've been the least favorite kid for years, and I've just gotten used to having to share or give up things, but my grandmother's ring was my hill to die on. And depending on how their behavior is, I may go and see Amy. Currently LC due to this drama. Update 2. Okay, a few things I wanted to say before I finally tell you guys how everything wrapped up. Number 1, and most importantly, I am so sorry for using that word. I had no idea the origin of the word gypped was derived from gypsies and is a slur against the Romani people. I apologize for using the word and will phase it from my vocabulary. I meant no offense by using it in my post and really do apologize if I did offend someone. Secondly, I took the advice of some people and didn't block my family, which worked in my favor. Lastly, I really appreciate all the support I have received. It means the world to me. So, the top thing I should mention is about Amy. She recently moved, wanting a mostly fresh start. Her and I are still friends on social media since we share common hobbies and interests. However, she wanted a mostly clean break and only remains in LC with me, her cousin, and her best friend. According to her pictures on social media, she's doing pretty well for herself. I am so proud of her. Next thing is my family. After a few days of posts, I kept receiving texts, emails, and letters from family. Yes, I got letters that surprised me too. I got annoyed at all the harassment and sent all the screenshots of my conversations with my mom, brother, the group chat with them and Amy, and my uncle, all with highlighted parts that show they were wrong. Suffice to say that most of the family iced them out. The only ones who are still on my mom and brother's sides are my youngest sibling. I don't think they have a choice since they still live with mom and are being forced to, and our one cousin who lives hours away, one of those alpha giga Chad men the internet loves to mock. So I'm not too worried anymore. Finally, me. I'm doing great. I recently started sewing since I want to start getting into cosplay, and I began doing yoga every morning. My partner and I still have date nights often, mostly consisting of board games, video games, or movies. Who has money to go out in this economy? LOL. We even looked into rescuing a bird. My partner is allergic to dander, and they already suffer cause of my other pets, so this pet is for them. Right now, my mom and brother haven't done anything illegal, but I did get security cameras just in case. The harassment has stopped. My partner and I are happy. Amy is doing well, and life is sweet. I think this is it. My mom and brother have finally realized they lost this fight, and I couldn't be happier. Now on to the next story. Story 12. Cousin only eats when I feed her, but when she made a mess at my brother's party, my aunt blamed me. Found out she barely let her daughter leave the house, and my mom had enough. I want to start by saying that I absolutely love my baby cousin, Lily. She's one of my favorite people in the world, and I see her as more of a little sister than a cousin. But during a recent family gathering, things got a little tense, and I'm left wondering if I handled the situation poorly. I'm 24, female, and part of a large joint family with grandparents, aunts, uncles, and plenty of cousins. Since I work in another state, I only see everyone during holidays or special events. Being the oldest of my generation, I've always been close to my younger cousins, especially Lily, who's just 4 years old. We have a 2-decade age gap, but I adore her and babysit whenever I can. She's very attached to me and even sees my mom as a second mother. Recently, I attended my younger brother's birthday party, a rare chance to relax and catch up with family after a stressful year. Lily was there, of course, and as the youngest cousin, she didn't have any playmates her age. Naturally, she gravitated toward me. She kept pulling me away from the table to join her games, and I happily played with her for a while. When it was time for dinner, I even fed her because she refuses to eat unless it's from her mom, my mom, or me. After making sure she was settled, I handed her off to my grandma so I could grab a plate of food and enjoy the meal. I honestly thought she'd nap or play outside in the garden, but when I came back, I found chaos. Lily had pulled at the tablecloth, spilling several dishes and creating a huge mess. She was crying because my aunt, her mother, had started scolding her, and the whole scene had become a disaster. Later, my aunt came up to me and in a very pointed tone said, "I should have kept an eye on Lily." She implied that the mess was my fault, essentially blaming me for not watching her. I was so shocked that I didn't know how to respond at first, but then I told her as calmly as I could that Lily is not my responsibility. She is her mother, and it's ultimately her job to look after her. My aunt stormed off after that, and now my family group chats and calls are blowing up. My mom and grandparents are getting complaints about how disrespectful I was for speaking to my aunt that way. I didn't mean to cause any drama, but I genuinely feel like I did nothing wrong. I love Lily and always try to help out when I can, but I was hoping to enjoy this one event without being on babysitting duty the entire time. So now I'm wondering, am I the jerk for standing up for myself? Or should I have handled things differently? Comments where OP has replied. Comment 1, NTA. You are 100% correct. Lily is not your responsibility. You handled it perfectly reasonably. Her mother is under no illusion that she can blame you for her poor parenting. For anyone saying you should be looking after Lily, tell them that the next gathering you are delegating that responsibility to them. At the gathering, remind the person and everyone else that they volunteered to watch Lily. OP. I wish I could say that in my group chats without everyone aiming for my head right now. There are mostly neutral responses. A few say that I need to just apologize for my rude tone and smooth things over. My mom and grandparents are on my side completely. My aunt is mom's cousin, but they were brought up like sisters, so my mom is also getting messages from her. All I'm going to say is I've never been so motivated to go back to work. Comment 2. Do not apologize to anyone. This will give them the idea they were right and you should have been watching her daughter. NTA. I would also decline any invitations in the future where they will be attending. Maybe they can latch on to another family babysitter. OP. My mom also told me not to apologize to my aunt, but I don't want to start a family war by saying that I wouldn't attend any future events. I'm the oldest, as I have said, and in my culture it comes with a crap ton of responsibilities. Don't get me wrong, I had a good childhood. I love all my extended families, even if there are occasional hiccups, but this is the first time my aunt, a second mom growing up, has blown up on me about anything. My mom wouldn't allow anyone to talk to me that way at all, no one. So maybe she is showing her true colors now? I sure hope not. I hope this is just stress or something. I know it's wishful thinking, but I only come back home when I'm free from work. I don't want Safe Harbor to be ruined because of this. Update. November 26, 2024. Hey everyone. Thanks for all the advice and support. I'm back in my city now, and things have finally calmed down after what felt like endless family drama. I'll start work tomorrow, so I thought I'd share an update on how everything unfolded. As I mentioned, my aunt had been calling and leaving messages nonstop after the incident. My mom, who is absolutely my superhero, told me to stand my ground and not give in to the pressure. She even stepped in to handle things herself. On Sunday, She went to my aunt's house, and according to my cousin Carl, fake name, tore her a new one. Apparently, my mom didn't hold back. She called out my aunt's behavior, her deadbeat husband, and her overly controlling parenting style. It turns out my aunt has been clashing with pretty much everyone in the family, collecting grudges like Pokemon cards. I hadn't realized how bad things had gotten since I've been away for work. Here's some context I learned later. Lily had a few health scares as a baby, which led my aunt to become a full-blown helicopter mom. She barely lets Lily out of the house unless it's to visit our family. Even her preschool is run by my uncle and's brother, and my aunt pulls her out of school whenever she feels like it. According to Carl, Lily is lucky to have some freedom when she stays at our house, which explains why she's so attached to me and my mom. While my mom was handling my aunt, I had a beach day with my brother. It was just the two of us, and we had the best time eating ice cream and building sandcastles. Felt nostalgic, like revisiting our childhood memories of living by the coast. It also made up for not celebrating his birthday properly due to all the chaos. Monday was a relaxed day at home with my cousins. My grandma even brought Lily over so I could say goodbye before heading back. Getting her out of my aunt's house was apparently a battle in itself, but I'm so grateful I got to spend a few hours with her. She's such a joy, and I'll miss her terribly. Now for the funny bit. Carl called me shortly after I posted my original story. His exact words, "Breaking out of the prison, are we? Right behind you, sis." He's been cracking jokes about the whole situation ever since, which has definitely lightened the mood. As for my aunt, she's still trying to stir up drama, but most of the family is on my side. Once the truth came out, it became clear that her accusations about me neglecting Lily were ridiculous. Everyone knows how much I adore Lily, and I've always been there for her when I could. After reading all the comments and advice, I've decided not to apologize. I would have considered it just to keep the peace, but she's blown this so far out of proportion that it's not worth it. My mom has told her to stop acting like a child and quit spamming the family group chats. Her words, not mine. At this point, I'm putting the drama behind me. Almost everyone in the family has reassured me that I did nothing wrong, so I'm moving forward with a clear conscience. Thank you again to everyone who helped me see this situation clearly. I truly appreciate it. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.